Hafaday, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the Guam Congress Building. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. It's Tuesday, January 16. The time is about 1:10 p.m. I'm sorry, it's 2:05 p.m. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notices for this public hearing was published in the Guam Daily Post, posted to the GovGuam Public Notice Portal on Monday, January 8, 2024, and Friday, January 12, 2024. Notice was also sent by email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. This hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. For those testifying, please respond only to the questions asked. Please state your name before testifying so that we can accurately transcribe who was testifying at that time. And after testimony, senators will be allowed to ask questions, of course, of the panel. And please answer as directly as possible the questions that you are being asked. And senators, please allow answers to the questions. All right, the agenda for today, it's an oversight hearing of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority operations. I want to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues today, including Senator Terlaje, Situsmasi Senator, and Senator Tom Fisher. Thank you, Senator, for being present. Okay, we have technical difficulties. We'll take a recess. Thank you. Thank you, audio. All right, thank you for your patience during that technical issues. All right, so we're going to continue. This is an oversight hearing of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority to address several items that I've brought to their attention as well. We're concerned, of course, in doing these oversight hearings with just ensuring that we are all on the same page if we're going to get to solutions, to make sure that we are updated on some of the issues that were significant during the last oversight hearing on September 28, 2023. We want to provide an opportunity for accountability and transparency, and an opportunity for the senators, of course, to seek more detailed information. In the last hearing we had, the last oversight hearing was on September 28th, 2023. That is the end of fiscal year 2023, right before the beginning of fiscal year 2024 on October 1st. However, that followed a budget that we had passed in August, I believe, or July, which gave GMH $8 million above the FY23 levels, and approximately $7 million above the level requested by the governor in her budget request for GMH. And that's a total of $30 million from the different sources. At the budget hearings, when we talked about their plans for the year, they discussed there was a very intense billing and collections effort that they were going to undergo, and that was going to be part of the revenues that they were going to be able to bring in and expend for the fiscal year. However, on September 28, 2023, we were presented information by the Executive Management Council of the Guam Memorial Hospital that the billings and collections efforts for October to September of fiscal year 2023 had decreased in comparison to the previous fiscal year. The total billings were at $201.1 million, while total collections were at $105.8 million. That means collections were about 53% of what had been billed. GMH, through the CFO, mentioned that collections were expected to improve as a result of increased billing. On October 16th, as you know, the legislature went into session on a bill which was signed into law to appropriate $30 million to pay outstanding vendor payments and to perform necessary repairs. At that time, it was reported that there was $30 million in vendor payables. In addition to the legislature appropriating $30 million to cover the vendor payables, $20 million of ARPA funds was committed to GMH, supposed to be for capital improvement projects. That was a cumulative total of $50 million, October 16th, 2023. On December 6th, I received a letter from the hospital requesting additional funds to pay base pay increase for nurses with an explanation that if they were able to recruit and retain local nurses at a higher base pay, make it more attractive for them, that they would be able to use less or have less need for the traveling nurses, which were very expensive for GMH. I'd like to recognize and welcome Senator Frank Blas Jr., Situs Masi Senator, for joining us today. On January 3rd, 2024, I received an email from a concerned citizen alleging that GMH, or a message, I think, from GMH, that GMH is hiring individuals with questionable backgrounds at higher than necessary salaries and giving the impression of a potentially politically motivated hiring. This was specifically concerning above-step recruitments for position of, I think, Deputy Assistant Administrator of Operations. On that same day, the Office of Public Accountability released its report, 24-01, on GMH Authority Revenue Cycle Management. The report alleged deficiencies in GMHA's procurement process in complying with the Guam procurement law and unreasonable basis for the contractor's compensation, resulting in question costs of $4.9 million and citing the ineffectiveness of the RCM consultancy due to cash flow and patient receivable issues. I was also informed by GMH around this time that the current electronic health record system, the EHR system, and I think we were also informed at the last oversight hearing, it's pretty much, they are saying that it has failed. It was created more for behavioral health, not able to handle what their needs are at the hospital at this point, and they need to begin again with a new RFP for a new EHR system. Finally, I added to the list of issues to discuss at this oversight hearing the advertisement that I saw for attorneys that GMH is seeking to candidates to fill open positions for attorneys 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the reason I added this on while hiring attorneys is normal course of business is only because I want to do an overview a little bit of It wasn't too long ago when GMH was very satisfied with the services of the Attorney General's office and their collections and their billings. And GMH was able to do rebasing without the need of additional attorneys. And I think, I mean, it's relevant to me, and we'll see more of the details, but I'm just bringing it up because it also seems to be the same time period when the attorneys outside of the Attorney General's office were brought on to the hospital that this contract was put into place. Also, when the system, the electronic information system seemed to crash, that the other system was procured without any RFP or the continuing expansion of that EHR system that we're currently under, and now the new RFP. All right, so we're going to talk about some of these, and I know that I see many members of GMH here. We're also going to invite members of the public to also testify after GMH and the senators have completed their questioning. And I know GMH has prepared a PowerPoint for us, but I'd like to first invite them up with the CEO, please. If you could bring you and your team up to the table. We'll have you sworn in by our Sergeant of Arms. And if there's anyone who's going to testify on behalf of GMH, if you could please be sworn in at this point.
Can I have you please rise and raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the
Sorry.
truth?
Can we get the attorney to swear in also? Thank you. Thank you. Sarge, could you please begin?
Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Madam Chair, under the oath, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant of Arms, and thank you for all those who sworn in. All right, so I'd like to begin, if we can, with, for me, the very pressing issue of the $30 million that the legislature appropriated from all of the remaining funds of the government of Guam to GMH in October, an accounting of that, and an accounting of the $20 million in ARPA funds that was pledged to GMH. So if we could begin there, please. And, or Ms. Lillian, if you could please also, yeah, maybe introduce your team as well.
My name is Lillian Posadas. I'm the hospital administrator. To my right is Yuka, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Good afternoon. Yuka Hechanova, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon. Christine Takaro, Administrator of Nursing Services.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is William Kando. I'm the Assistant Administrator of Operations for the Guam Hospital Authority.
All right. Madam CEO, can you please just describe a little bit of the organization so that we know where in, I guess, in rank all of these representatives lie in relation to you?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Right below me, as the hospital administrator, there are 4 divisions. And so one of them is the Associate Administrator of Clinical Services that is being led by Dr. Larry Lizama, who is here with us. Next to him, and under him, under the clinical services, we have the 2 arms of the clinical services, and that's nursing. And it is led by Christine Takaro, who is the Assistant Administrator of Nursing. And then next to her, under that clinical services, is Ms. Belle Rada, who oversees the professional support. So those are the two arms of the clinical services. Under the medical division, that is the Associate Administrator of Medical Services. Right now, that is led by Dr. Vincent Duenas, acting until March. He's going to retire, but we're trying to keep him and not retire. And then the third division is Fiscal Division, and that's led by our CFO, Yuka. And I forgot to mention, the fourth division is Operations. That was led formerly by Mr. William Kando when he was holding that position. He has voluntarily stepped down to be the Assistant Administrator of Operations. Did I miss anybody?
So is there no current administrator of operations?
Not right now in
Okay.
the Associate Administrator of Operations. That position is not filled, it's vacant.
Okay. All right, yeah, so if you could, we've met everyone. If you could please begin, maybe
I'm
with a report
sorry.
of the 30 million. Oh, go ahead, please. Oh, sorry.
Jordan
Please continue.
Palone, he is our attorney, he is our legal counsel, and he reports directly to me.
Jordan?
Jordan.
Okay.
Jordan Palone.
Yes, all right. And I see the two doctors here. Thank you for being here, Dr. Lizama, Dr. Duenas, Jesus Masi. All right.
Okay, so we'll begin with Yuka explaining and detailing the 30 million expenditure for the vendor payments and the 20 million.
We did receive 30 million appropriation from Public Law 3743, and we immediately started working with the Department of Administration, who was actually in charge of dispersing those payments. To date, DOA has paid 23.6 million, so there is a balance of 6.4 million. We do still owe DOA 4.7 million. That was for the travel nurse invoices they paid a couple of years ago, so that's still on our books, leaving a final balance of 1.7 million of the $30 million.
Thank you. Can you just clarify that the governor, at the same time that the $30 million law was passed, passed an executive order naming a fiscal team to advise her, make recommendations to the governor on the financial management of the Guam Memorial Hospital. Are you in contact with this team? Are they in control of the 30 million, or is it you and your team in control of the 30 million?
Well, we send the invoices with a payment request to DOA, and then the staff there in turn will cut a check or electronically transfer the funds to the vendor.
All right. Do they charge you anything for
No.
their work?
No, there's no charge.
All right. So the $4.7 million, you said this is a couple years ago that DOA advanced, it must have been during COVID, that they advanced pay for traveling nurses. And you're saying, according to DOA, you still owe them this money?
Yes,
You have to reimburse it?
We do still owe. It's been on our payables for a while, so it's still there. But we did want to pay the other vendors first, and then this is one of the main payables that's still sitting on our AP.
All right. So when you came here and reported to us at 30 million, you gave us a list of vendors that were payable at that time. Are those the same vendors that were paid?
Yes.
Were there
Yes,
any additional vendors that were paid with the 30 million?
I would have to check, but they should be the same because we use the same list that we provided and worked from there.
All right. Were, aside from the 4.7 owed to DOA, were there any other vendors on that list not paid?
Yes, there still are a few. We have some issues. These are the stragglers that we like to call them, that there may be issues with the invoice or something in receiving, or we need to match it with the PO. There was just some technical things, so these are the ones that we're still working on so they can be paid appropriately.
What would you say the amount of those are outstanding?
It is, not including the DOA one, about 1.7. We have 1.7 left.
All right. Did paying the vendors result in them renewing their contracts or their services to Guam Memorial Hospital, or were there any vendors that were lost due to late payment?
To my knowledge, the vendors that had us on credit hold, after the payments were made, they have entertained our solicitations and have also resumed some of the work that they may have stopped after they were paid.
All right. Okay. Can you please report on the $20 million as well, on the ARPA funds, and then I will open it up for the senators on these two items.
So the 20 million, I understand that there is an account that's already created at DOA. However, we have not drawn down on those funds yet. Mr. Kando has the list of the breakdown of what the uses of the 20 million will go to, and as the invoices come in, then we'll send them to DOA to pay the vendor.
Okay, Mr. Kando.
Yes, William Kando, Assistant Administrator of Operations. This list of 20 million in CIPs, we've provided this to you so you can follow along. It's provided to you in the PowerPoint presentation on page 11. So $7 million is for
If we could put that PowerPoint page up, please. Thank you.
$7 million.
Are you able to make that bigger? All right, please proceed, Mr. Kando.
Yes, thank you. So the first set is $7 million for the chillers. This is for the two 450-ton chillers and cooling towers, and then that's estimated at about $5 million, and then $2 million for the backup chiller and air-cooled condensing units. The next $7 million is a set of different projects that is focused on structural and architectural improvements. One major one being the interior and exterior envelope of the hospital. As you may recall, we did a majority of the repairs to the rooftop, but we haven't addressed the envelope yet. That's the sides of the building coming down from the rooftop, 4th floor all the way down to the 1st floor, which includes windows, doors, typhoon shutters, even wall hardening. We're planning for wall hardening in the interior courtyards, front and middle courtyards. We did experience significant vortex effects during Typhoon Mawa in our courtyards, which caused quite a bit of damage. This also includes mechanical systems related to the HVAC system that are attached to our envelope. It also includes an ongoing project, which is our liquid oxygen expansion, which includes the replacement of two very, very large liquid oxygen tanks. So within about a month or so, that project will be completed. It will be, so that will really be the first project that we will commence doing drawdowns.
Sorry, where's the liquid oxygen on this list?
It shows as GMH LOX. LOX is an abbreviation for liquid oxygen.
Is it on the bottom?
So it's the bullet, right? The second bullet of that $7 million, that second $7 million set in the structural repairs, right under the envelope.
Okay, please proceed.
And then we're still planning to demolish our second floor. This is our demolition 1 Bravo, second floor of our Z-wing. As you may recall, we demolished about 2/3 of the building already. The very old Z-wing. We still have to demolish the second floor, the remaining 1/3, and then we'll be retrofitting the first floor as well. It also includes parking expansion, and also we're in the design concept phase of our nursery. This is our NICU expansion. We're basically converting the nursery into a NICU capability, so it can do primarily NICU and intermediate care for the infants, for the neonates, and then of course it would have some capacity for well babies. And then the next set is $3 million for additional HVAC system upgrades. And then, which focuses heavily on air handling units. Again, this is a major aspect of us righting our situation with our ventilation system, is ongoing replacement of our air handling units. And then the last set of $3 million is focused on IT network improvements, which includes replacing our servers, firewalls, replacing our active domain management system, which is really so that we can enhance our ability to manage our IT network, enhance cybersecurity risks, management of those risks. Also, it helps us manage the email system and also our hospital website. And then we do have a IFB which we're in the process of letting out for the replacement of our access control system. And then we're also replacing our surveillance system as well. And then we included the new EHR RFP in this set as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kando. Can you just tell us on this list, are they arranged in a particular order? Is this order of priority, or what is the order?
We consider them all high priority. They're not from high to low. They're really, I group them basically, you know, as far as funding amount, 7, 7, 3, and 3. But we consider them all vitally important. Especially, I mean, the EHR is listed last, but we don't consider that the least important. And of that whole listing, 70% of these projects are either obligated with either a requisition or a purchase order already. The ones in the second set were structural and architectural repairs. Some of them require a design phase, so the construction phase would take longer to proceed with and to draw down on. So it's about 70% is obligated already.
All right, so are you saying they became obligated between October and today?
They became obligated between the time the $20 million was made available to us and today, yes.
All right, and then, for example, when you said we won't be able to construct these things, some of this is just for design. Example, the NICU, the neonatal intensive care. There's a $1 million for the design and construction.
So that it includes both design and construction. It's just that as far, you know, it just take longer to get to the construction phase, but the money is for both.
All right, so $1 million is going to be enough for the NICU?
Well, we hope so. We'll get a construction cost estimate actually during the design phase, so
Okay.
then we'll know more.
All right, thank you. And so the ones that are not obligated yet, why is that?
Again, so like the envelope is a major portion of that 7 million. That one is already in the design phase to fine tune exactly what we need to, especially like wall hardening in the courtyard. So that one is also in the design phase before we can proceed with the construction phase.
So,
We're already working with a designer on that one.
so that money you already had, and the 7 million is, part of it is set aside for actual construction of the hardening?
Even the 20 million is paying for the additional design that we need for this envelope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's not obligated yet because you're not yet, you haven't yet confirmed a design?
We are designing for a more detailed proposal, which will take us into the detailed design phase.
All
Yes.
right. When do you expect the rest of the 20, how much of the 20 million is not encumbered yet, or I'm sorry?
$6.5 million.
6.5, all right. When do you expect that to be allocated? Or
Once the design phases are complete and we're able to go out with an IFB for the construction, we'll be able to encumber the rest of it.
All right. Okay, thank you for this report. And I had asked as well for an expenditure report of the 30 million. Can you just let us know? We don't have a copy of that.
I'll send it to you later today.
You have that?
Yes, I have
All
it.
right, yes, we had asked for that. Okay, senators, I'm going to, can I please introduce also Senator Sabina Paris? Thank you, Senator, for being here. So, Senator Taitigui, questions this is on the topics now of the $30 million and the $20 million that we just appropriated recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Madam Chair. And good afternoon to my colleagues as well as those who are here today and those who are listening. The funding that you mentioned earlier on the 30 million, you said you had about 1.7 million still owed to vendors. Can you verify again that? I just wanted.
Yes, 1.7.
And these vendors, are they new vendors or the vendors that were on that same list that you brought to us?
They're still the same vendors.
Okay. And of those vendors that are owed 1.7 million, what is the timeline in which you are late in paying them? You know how they have like a 30-day, 120 days since, you know, they were supposed to be paid. What is the status on the highest one that's been waiting for quite some time? Is it about 120 days?
Yes.
How many of them?
We have in the 90 to 120 days. We have them also in the 60 days. But most of it is in the 90 to and beyond.
And 120 days. Okay, but then there are some vendors who were paid that were only been waiting for only 30 days. But yet or all those that were paid are in the 90 to 120, are you saying? Because have there been vendors that you paid out that were, you know, you've only been late paying them for 30 days?
We've been paying the invoices that are in our system from October and earlier. So some invoices may be September or August maybe, for example, and then some invoices go all the way back to earlier in the year. So it could range from any time from October and earlier.
But wouldn't you guys start paying these vendors based on the one that's been waiting the longest?
We prioritized all of them because they were all waiting for so long, but we prioritized the ones that had us on credit hold, particularly for our supplies and our pharmaceuticals. So we really concentrated on getting those invoices together so DOA could pay those as quickly as possible.
So the 5.7 million, is that correct on travel nurses that's owed to DOA? Is that right?
4.7.
Oh, okay, 4 points. So that's money that needs to be reimbursed to DOA, right? They've already forked out that money, correct?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I'm sorry, 4 point what again?
4.7.
Okay. I have to apologize, you know, to anyone's coming to testify. The echo in here is really bad, so please, you know, don't feel ashamed to say, what? What did you say? Because I'll be doing a lot of that. So that means that leaves you with how much funding left over from the 30 million from DOA that's been sitting in their account, which you draw down from?
1.7.
1.7. So you should have some funding to pay that 1.7 off, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then work with DOA. Okay, now you said you didn't do anything with the 20 million from ARP funding that DOA has established another account. Is it similar, the ARP funding of 20 million, is it similar to how they set up the 30 million?
I was sent the account number, so DOA had already set up the account number, so anytime we're ready with the invoices, it can be drawn down and paid to the vendor.
So it's the same setup?
Yes.
Okay, as the 30 million, right?
Yes.
Is there any reason why you haven't drawn down on this money? This money is like, you know, ARP funding, right?
Because the 20 million is reserved for the CIP projects, so as Mr. Kando mentioned, he already had his list of the different projects and what stage they're in. So as soon as his invoices are ready, he'll send them to the accounting department, who will draw down and prepare the payment request. We'll send that to DOA to draw it down.
Right, that's right. This is CIP. But Mr. Canto, when was the last time you were in front of this body telling us about all the CIP projects? The list that you provided us is pretty much the same list. What has been the holdup?
The holdup is going through the procurement process. Some of these projects are going through design, but several of them don't require a design. We're very anxious to get our bid going for our formal bid going for the chillers. So we anticipate being able to advertise for these chillers, this large chiller package, in the next 2 weeks or so. Within the next 2 weeks, we'll be able to advertise and proceed with that IFB.
Are you aware that you are able to take advantage of the emergency procurement process that we've done, like for DOE?
Well, we do think about and talk about emergency procurement when we can. So a lot of these projects don't require an emergency procurement, like the smaller projects that may require only an RFQ.
Yeah, but you're using ARP funding. ARP funding has a timeline to it. Did you receive any COVID funding? You received COVID funding. Any of that COVID funding have to be returned because you missed the deadline to use it? None whatsoever. Okay, so we don't want to see anything like, losing the ARP funding, because it is on a timeline, Mr. Canto. You sat in front of us and told us about procurement issues, and here we are. You almost had to oh, I didn't know we could use emergency procurement, and it's just, we can't afford to lose any of this ARP funding, and it is on a timeline. So I suggest you familiarize yourself with the law that was recently passed to allow agencies to utilize the emergency procurement so that you can get these projects up and running before the deadline of so I recommend you look into that. The last question I had is, no, I have to save it for another one. It has nothing to do with this funding source. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitzagui. Senator Fisher. All right, Senator Blas.
Madam Speaker, my line of questioning is on the assumption that we're just talking about the funding. Okay. Ms. Echenovic, I didn't quite get your answer, or we didn't quite get your answer when the speaker had asked about the financial team that was put together by the governor to assist the GMH. And what their role is or what they've done so far. You responded by saying the bills go down to DOA, but you never said anything about what the financial team. So what have they been doing?
We've been meeting every month with DOA and BBMR, and we've been talking about some of our issues, especially with the cash flow. But one of the things that we've discussed was how to improve on the Medicare collections and how the need for the rebasing is coming up, and that's what we will need help with because we don't have any resources to pursue that. So DOA and BBMR will help us with trying to get more reimbursement from Medicare. So that's one of the bigger projects that we have on the agenda. But we do meet with them every month. We just met last week.
Who's on the financial team?
I'm sorry?
Who's on this financial team, other than BBMR and DOA?
Miss Lillian and myself also attend the meetings, and I believe Miss Bertha Duenas is also on the committee.
So all the members that were appointed by at that time, the acting governor for this financial team, you've been engaged with?
Yes.
Okay.
They schedule meetings every month.
Okay. Along the lines of the questions from Senator Taitzagui with regard to the ARP funding, you did receive ARP funding?
There is an account at DOA,
No,
but we don't have the cash.
Well, did GMH itself receive ARP funding?
From this 20 million that the governor committed?
Sayang nga 20 million.
Okay, from previous ARPA funds?
Yeah.
Yes, we received some
How much?
funding.
How much did you receive?
I need to look that up.
Okay. I'll wait.
While you're waiting, we also received a Medicare advance funding, but we had to repay that back because that was just an advance in the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
We received about $4.6 million.
I remember that.
Remember that, right?
I remember
so we
that
had
one.
to repay that back.
But I was interested in finding how much
ARPA.
the ARPA funds.
20.5?
25, 20.5?
20.5,
And that's ARPA.
yes.
What about CARES?
CARES money we received from the Department of Health and Human Services, 9.7.
Okay, do you
I
have
feel
a-
like that number's too low. This might not be updated, but we did receive a substantial amount from the Department of Health and Human Services.
do you have are all of those monies expended?
Yes,
Do you have a listing as to where that money went to? What did you use that? What did you use the 20.7?
most of it
20.5
went
and ARPA.
to, we had supplies, PPEs, equipment, also differential pays we had to pay for the staff and the clinicians. That is the bulk of where the money went.
Okay, what about the CARES?
The same,
Same?
yes.
You have a breakdown of what those expenditures were?
Yes, it's also audited annually when we have our annual audit because it's federal funding. So that's included in our schedule of expenditures of federal funds.
Okay, so all of these funds have been expended already. Nothing's in the queue.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Kando, I'm looking at your listing here with regards to the CIP projects. You know, one of the things that this body has been receiving or has received is a concerning information with regard to split units. How many split units did GMH procure, and then where'd you put them?
Okay, as of the 11th of January this month, we've and this is over a long period of time. This didn't just happen over a short period of time, but we've installed and commissioned 91 split units throughout the hospital and 40 portable ACs of varying sizes. The split units are of varying sizes depending on where we're placing them.
Okay, so you've installed 91 split units, and you've got 41
Portable ACs.
All these units have power supplies?
They're all powered by
You're saying oh yes, and she's saying no.
Well, there's a few that there's some in OB ward, L&D, nursery that we installed, but we're pending the installation of the power supply for those units.
How do you install something and not a split unit and not have the power? Where are you going to get the power to begin with?
Because we designed it first, so we knew that could pull the power from different panels within the hospital to support these installations. But we had to go through the design phase. We have a contracted electrical engineer completed the design, and now we're trying to complete an RFQ to complete that installation.
How many of those units do you have in that predicament?
In that situation, we have about, I'd say about somewhere around 25 split units, 25 to 30, somewhere in there. Just the OB ward itself, there's 20 rooms that we need to, we've installed the splits, but we need to, connect it with power.
When did you install those split units?
Oh boy, we installed those I would say about 2 or 3 months ago.
So between 60 and 90 days ago,
While we were installing them, we were concurrently working the design. We had the contract out for the design, and so once we completed that, now we're able to proceed. We actually tried to solicit already once. We had about 13 potential offers, bidders for RFQ. Only one actually submitted, and we found the bid to be non-conforming and high price.
I'm just a little, first off, you installed the units and then it was the electrical. Didn't you think about the electrical before? Wasn't the electrical necessity or what's necessary?
We were actually able to internally assess it, so we knew we could do the project. We didn't just go into it blindly, and we actually collaborated also with GPA.
90 days is blindly, Mr. Candro.
Well,
90 days is blindly.
No,
you know,
I don't think so. And we cannot ignore.
Tell that to patients in the OB ward who have to bring in their Ryobi personal fans.
Well, we are doing what we can. We are going as fast as we can to get this project done. But we have to do it right.
I just find it, I apologize, I just find it unacceptable and really disturbing that we're going to put in units and not to see, I don't see that there's any urgency in trying to get them up and running.
We were actually doing it urgently, but we were unsuccessful on the first RFQ. A big part of the problem is because the whole reason behind us needing the $30 million was to pay our contractors. Many of our contractors hadn't been paid prior obligations for over a year. So now we're actually having trouble bringing them back to the table, but now that we've paid off those obligations, they're coming back to the table and they're actually confident that we would actually be able to pay our bills.
Where does this come? Where's this money to be able to complete these projects? Where's it coming from?
That's coming from the 20 million as well, the OB ward, the power supply.
This 20 million?
Yes.
Where?
It's part of what we call HVAC upgrades.
Okay, your HVAC upgrades. You have here replacement of GMH air handling units, replacement of skilled nursing facility HVAC chilled water lines. Where does it here say about the split units? There's a difference between air handling and split and air cons. That's why I'm asking the question. It's not here.
You may not be able to see it, but I assure you it's reflected on the requisition, and it's a part of the procurement process.
Mr. Cano, so you're telling me here there should be a third item in this, under this category?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. You only have 3 million here. 2, 1. Where's the?
It will be. This listing has gone through some revisions, and that will be a revision going forward.
So am I wrong to be concerned about where this money's at when I don't even see where it's coming from?
You don't have to be concerned. It's reflected on the requisition.
Basically, when I'm looking at this here, it doesn't. Okay, I need some assurances, and this doesn't give me any assurances that it's a priority.
Well, I can assure you I initialed the requisition showing, and it went through Yuka's desk, her office, and she certified it as well.
Okay, so there's obviously information that's missing from this here. Because I'm looking across this whole thing, I don't see it. I don't see, even in as far as the comments, I don't see it there.
Yes, it's missing. We're talking about $200,000.
Well, I'm sure, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, we're going to go through other categories, and I'm going to go ahead and save for the rest, the others, for the rest, other categories. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cano.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, GMH. Always nice to see you guys. What is this document here?
I'm sorry, I passed that out.
Okay.
That is the list of vendors that we were given when we were told there was $30 million in unpaid vendors. So that's the list back in October of unpaid vendors. And the testimony today was that most of those have been paid except for 1.7 million. So we don't have a list from them of the expenditures actually paid. They said they will submit that, but we don't have it. So I passed this out instead, just for you.
Thank you for that point of clarification, Madam Chair. So I guess, Ms. Hechanova, if you're the right person to answer this, how do we tell who's been paid on this list versus who hasn't? Or can I just give you a company name and then you could just confirm if...
Yes. You can, I guess, pending me sending the listing to the speaker, I guess I could confirm.
I just saw the one entry. It's been in the media very recently under 5168, the Med Health Solutions, $242,395.11.
Yes.
Was this paid?
This was paid.
Okay. And so this is the company that's the subject of a scathing audit from the public auditor. I'm just going to go ahead and read just a little bit off the first page. And the public auditor in his report writes, our review of the procurement agreement billings and payments relative to the performance of revenue cycle management services for the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority found, 1, deficiencies in GMHA's procurement process in complying with Guam procurement law and or its procurement regulations. 2, factors indicative of preferential treatment towards hiring the contractor for RCM services. 3, unreasonable basis included in the contractor's 12% compensation, resulting in question costs of $4.9 million. And 4, ineffectiveness of the RCM consultancy due to continuing cash flow and patient receivable issues. I guess the obvious question for me is, did you believe it was prudent to pay out this company given that this contract is currently under investigation and also given the findings of the public auditor? Can you provide us a little bit more on the timeline of when this company was paid off?
These were the last 2 invoices of the contract that we had not paid. So this was September and October, for the months of September and October. So we did send those to DOA to pay off of this because they were on our accounts payable listing.
So this is prior to the issuance of the audit and the investigation?
Yes.
Okay. The investigation's on. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And then on the CIPs, I just kind of wanted to ask a timeline because I know a previous the speaker had mentioned. I had a relative who was having a baby, and they called ahead to the Guam Memorial Hospital to find out, because everything that's in the news, did you guys have aircon or were there fans? And this relative of mine was advised to bring BYOF, bring your own fan, to the hospital. So I guess for the sake of everybody who's availing of the services at GMH, what is the timeline for the chiller projects? Like months, years? What can you tell us so that people out there know how long they got to bring a fan for?
Okay, thank you for that question, Senator. So it's the chillers is a long-term project. To fix the OB ward is a very short-term solution. To put power to those split units. This second RFQ, the site visit is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The quotations are due for submission by 1 p.m. Monday. So we hope to award it by the end of, hopefully by the end of next week. Upon award, we're looking at about a 60-day project. Hopefully, it really depends on whether all of the supplies that they need, the special panels that they're going to be installing, are on island. If it's off island, it could take a little longer. But we're projecting about 60 days, give or take.
So who can confirm on the record what you tell patients if they call ahead or they're coming in? Are they being advised then to bring their own fan to supplement whatever you guys may have?
We provide the fans, and so they don't have to bring unless they want to, but we provide the fans. We make it available.
We actually prefer that they not bring their own, electrical fans because, they would need to be checked. They could be an electrical safety hazard. We have our own supply of fans because we need to be ready for typhoon response. So we have a pretty good size inventory of fans. So the fan, I understand the fans are in place, pushing air into the rooms for the OB ward. The air handling unit that serves the OB ward is still working. It's just one of those AHUs, another long-term project along with the chillers, where we have the designs in hand. We need a successful bid because we've been trying to bid that as well. Pending the completion of those longer-term projects, these are our contingencies. We put in splits, we put in portable ACs, we put in fans to make them more comfortable.
I'm not sure if this is relative to the 30 million or the 20 million, but just still on the subject of fans, I know there was a release that had come out from the hospital relative to a COVID-19 surge, right? And just, having spent a lot of time with you during the pandemic, right away with all the issues going on with the chillers and the fans, I kind of thought to myself, where are we isolating these patients if you go into the hospital and there's just air being blown all over the place? Has this hindered your ability to do that?
No, Senator. We still have those isolation rooms with the negative air pressure, and so that's where we place those patients. It's our staff who come from off island and they're testing positive, and so that's where the numbers have also spiked. In addition to patients coming into the emergency room with flu-like symptoms, and when they're tested, they test positive. But we are keeping them isolated in the appropriate rooms with the negative air pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. So the audit was ongoing from at least August 2023, although the findings had not come out. Is that correct?
Yes. I think the final report came out in January.
Okay. All right. So, and the payment, these last two payments were made September? November or December?
I think the early part of November when we started gathering all the invoices. It could have been towards the end of October.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I guess the question is, general question is that, we did do a bailout for the Guam Memorial Hospital, and my concern is, what is the burn rate, and is GMH able to ensure that the collections that they're going to get is going to stave off another bailout? Do you feel confident that you can collect enough to stabilize the expenses?
At this point in time, I'll say yes, but from what I have observed in the last few years I've been here, we're going to have a bad month or two, and that really throws us off. If a typhoon unexpectedly hits, it impacts staffing productivity. We cannot code, we cannot bill when the staff are home for 3 or 4 days because of a typhoon. Right now, as you said, with COVID spiking again, I'm having staff have to be home quarantined, so we're losing productivity. This happened a lot during November and December. So we're trying to make a huge comeback in January to make up for all of these absences. And the staff are all back now and working full force. So the goal right now is to make up for, we did have declines in December for collections and billing. But January looks a lot more promising. I've authorized overtime. They worked yesterday and it was a holiday, but they pushed out a lot of bills. So it's just things like that that I have to be responsible for and to just be more aware of the situations where the staff are absent. That seems to be one of the biggest contributing factors to low productivity and bills not going out. When all the staff are there, things happen. Things get, the claims get billed, they get coded, we go out and collect, but when they're not there, we really notice a decrease in productivity.
Okay. In regards to deciding which source selection to use for procurement, have you reviewed whether you're getting the best value in the type of procurement that you are doing? So for instance, I'm hearing RFQs, and so what's the purpose of the RFQ? What was the reason for that type of source selection?
Well, we're using federal funds, and the ceiling for small procurement when you're using federal funds is $250,000. So anytime I can do an RFQ, for a small purchase, I'd be very excited to do it that way, because then you're not using the formal process. That's a lot quicker. You can really move out fast.
Okay, so I think therein lies one potential way to stretch the dollar. So I understand it's easier to spend the money, but you can use more of that, you can use that money, you can maximize the use of that money. What was the discussion on how, at least to get the best value for what we're spending it on?
Well, it's not really going to change the value, because you're still looking for the most competitive, lowest responsive and responsible either bidder or quoter. In the case of this list, most of them are greater than $500,000. These are very large CIPs. So then we cannot avail the RFQ process for those. They're just too large. So then it becomes a matter of can you do emergency procurement, or is it going to be a formal bid? And so we're putting, for the chillers, we're putting together a package pretty quick. And I still think that even if we're using a formal IFB process, we can still move pretty fast. And we certainly don't want to end up with a protest, which would delay matters even more. And we certainly want to make this fair to all the potential, because this one is so large, $5 million and $2 million packages, that we certainly want to encourage competition, and we want to avail that process, to all the contractors that are now coming back to the table.
Yeah, I think I need to take a closer look at the RFQs, what you're doing with the RFQs and the IFBs, because I think there's room for improvement when it comes to stretching that dollar. I guess the other question I have, you mentioned prior obligations. Is that on this vendor list, or is that a completely different report?
That was definitely a part of the vendor list that UCA was able to, with that $30 million, was able to address not only supply vendors, but construction contractors, general contractors, that we were finally able to make good on those prior obligations.
Okay, I just have a question with one of the items here. It says U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the amount is $2 million. What is that for?
That's for pharmaceuticals.
Okay. And then another question, how many vendors do you have for air conditions and maintenance?
We have a couple of contractors to maintain our main chillers. One is our main contractor. I'd rather not mention any names. And then the other one is engaged in tube and chemical cleaning. So we have two different vendors that deal with our chillers. Our split units, our internal labor force can address those. We have a preventive maintenance program that our facilities maintenance department, takes up those kind of issues, but anything that's very large, like a chiller or our emergency generators, we tend to bring in specialized contractors to do the maintenance on those.
Yeah, I'm counting 6 here, roughly 6. The other question I have is there are some individuals that are on the vendors list but are not nurses. Do you have an idea what kind of service they've done? I don't want to name names, but there are several people on this list,
Individuals?
individuals.
They're probably contractors. I couldn't say exactly without knowing who you mean on the vendors list,
Okay.
or doctors, or
Yeah, it doesn't say doctor. Yeah.
I don't know.
Read it out? Okay. We have Melissa Weibel.
She's our Board of Trustees. That's, I believe, her stipend
Okay.
on the list.
And then Rizaldi Tugade.
That's a petty cash reimbursement for the employee.
Okay. And then I believe there's another one, Angel Lagas Jr.
He's our CPR instructor.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Can I confirm who is in charge of issuing the RFPs, if there are going to be RFPs issued for the hospital?
Basically, the department that's looking for that kind of a service, and that department manager works with the fiscal and materials in crafting the RFP.
All right, and what about those on this capital improvement list for the 20 million in ARPA funds?
Okay, Mr. Kando oversees that, so he works with his facilities maintenance plus with fiscal and procurement.
All right, and what about the RFP for the EHR? Who's in charge of that then? That's on this list. Does that mean Mr. Kando's also in charge of that?
IT and MIS, that falls under Mr. Kando's leadership. Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
what about the RFP for the Met Farm contract that was under audit?
MedFarm or MedHealth?
Met Health, sorry.
MedHealth, right, for the RCM. That was a collaborative effort between our fiscal and the materials and for the business office, because that's with billings and collections, the business office
All
under
right,
fiscal.
do RFPs get approval from the Board of Trustees?
Yes, absolutely. Like the MedHealth, our chairwoman, and we discuss it at the board meetings, that this is going to be coming down in terms of an RFP. So we discuss it at the board meetings.
So they have to approve the RFP before it's issued? Or
The
do they just report?
Chairwoman reviews the final and then signs off.
But does the Board of Trustees vote on it, like their approval or not? She's just signing as chairperson, but it's actually been approved already
Yeah.
by the time it
Not
gets
that
to the
they approve
meeting?
it, we discuss it. We discuss it, but it does not require their approval.
All right. Okay, good. That's what I've seen in the minutes, that I didn't see an approval or a vote by the board, just kind of a subcommittee report, and then they saying they're proceeding with this RFP or not proceeding with this RFP.
Because it's really a management responsibility, not a governing body's responsibility.
Yeah, and relative to the CIPs, we take that list through the BOT subcommittee on facility CIP IT subcommittee. So they are fully aware of that list, or if it goes through any revisions, another revision, it'll go back through that subcommittee again to include the OB ward.
All right, and what about then the air cons? Who procured those?
FM submits the requisition, and then it goes to fiscal for approval for certification of the funds. So again, it's a management level.
What do you mean by requisition?
That's how you initiate the procurement of an aircon unit or those kind of
Small purchase?
equipment, small purchase, or
Was it done through small purchase, or was there like one contract to install several, like many, like they do at DOE? They have one contractor to install across the schools.
Well, in the case of the split units, like for the OB ward, the installation of those, I mean, that was a RFQ because it was a small purchase, and so it's still a competitive process. It starts with a requisition, though, that has to go through fiscal for certification, and then the procurement process continues thereafter.
All right. Okay, thank you. And so
Yes,
then,
we go after 3 quotes. Sometimes of course,
Yeah.
we would like to get even more than 3 quotes, but we're still looking for the lowest responsive and responsible quoter.
all right, and all these projects on the 20 million ARP list, none of these were already funded through previous ARP or CARES money? Or regular hospital funds? All right, just because this chillers and the air handling units, even the envelope, seems like we've been talking about that over and over. All right, what about, my final question on this part is, I think you said that there was a balance of unspent money of about 1.7 million? And if we include the 4.7 million owed to DOA from 2 years ago, when I responded to your request for that changing the nurses' base pay, I put in a bill to appropriate 5 million. We did receive a fiscal note from BBMR, which confirmed that there was 5.2 million still left in excess funds. However, they recommended that we use the 30 million as well, that I had suggested that we use the balance of the 30 million. So they're also confirming that there's 5 million still left from the 30 million. So I think they're including this 4.7. Have we made a formal request to DOA to
No.
I don't know, wipe that off the books?
No, not yet.
Yeah,
So
all
we,
right.
we really did prioritize all the vendors, and
Yeah.
this was the last thing that we would address
Okay.
when we finished everybody else.
All right, thank you. All right, we can proceed now in the order that you had prepared. I wanted to make sure we get those 2 items addressed as soon as possible. And so you may proceed with your PowerPoint if you will.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I guess we'll skip the introduction, but I do want to, next slide, please, just to kind of emphasize and highlight our mission, and that is Guam Memorial Hospital is a public organization entrusted to improve the health and wellness of the people of Guam. We do this by providing an exceptional patient experience centered on quality-driven, safe, cost-effective healthcare services. I also just kind of want to highlight, to illustrate, next slide, please. To illustrate the commitment and dedication of the GMH staff in meeting this mission, here are some of the positive patient care outcomes that we receive either directly from the patients or their family members. And, they state that they have confidence in their nurses and their skills and their knowledge, that they are treated, or I am treated with courtesy and respect, one patient responded, and that staff explain things in the way I could understand. And then, next slide, please. Just additional testimonials from patients that, really highlights and illustrates the service that we provide, the exceptional service that we provide, and that we do things right at the hospital and we save lives. One patient commented that Dr. Mendiola, who is an ER doctor, listened to my health concerns and quickly addressed them. The ER nurse was equally professional and provided great care. Another client or another patient, I would like to thank someone at the surgical ward for all their support and care. Thank you, and Sejus Maasi, also to the housekeeping staff for keeping my room clear. This is a rare testimonial because housekeeping are rarely recognized or appreciated, and we do have great housekeeping staff. Another patient, I had the very best care with every nurse or technician that I encountered. Even the doctors and technicians at the ER were wonderful. I am so glad I went to GMH. Another patient, thank you to the ICU team for all their hard work. We are completely satisfied and in awe at the great care and treatment. Dr. Paul Munya Agun and his staff assisted me through the whole process, which included preliminary, during, and after visits. Dr. Munya Agun has great sincerity in treating and helping patients. And last one, it's not just examples. I would like to thank everyone at the surgical ward for all their support and care. If you ask me, they don't get enough recognition for what they do. Thank you, and to Jus Masi, also to the housekeeping staff. Again, just testimonials from patients that we do provide exceptional care at that hospital. We're not perfect. Yes, we have our shortcomings, and yes, we have some inefficiencies, but, again, members of our executive team, managers and physicians and all staff We really are very committed to them continue operating the hospital and providing the quality care that we are charged to do, to provide. We spoke about, next slide please. Yuka spoke about the billings, and I don't know if you still, Madam Speaker, want to have Yuka elaborate a little bit more on the billings and the coding, staffing, and the accounts payable.
So to update you on the billing side, I did list some data from FY 21, 22, and 23, and then as of today, where we are in FY 24. So our average monthly billing has increased to 23 million this fiscal year. So we're really pushing hard. The staff have been pushing very hard to get the claims out. They have a goal of 25 million a month, and they're almost there. We did have some setbacks in November and December based on what I discussed earlier about productivity and the absences we've had and how that has impacted. Yesterday, the team came in and they pushed out almost $2 million of claims because I asked them if they can work overtime, come in on the holidays, just because we really need to get back on track. So that is our...
Yuka, can you just re-explain the part where you said there was an increase?
On the average monthly billing?
Compared to what?
Compared to the prior years of FY 21 through 23.
Where in the graph are we looking at then? So this is
I'm talking about on the top, there's the data that's on the top of the graph.
okay.
So if you look on the last line, it says average monthly billing. And so we had 17.4 in 2021, and then in 2022, 21.1, and then in 2023, 19.4, and in 2024, for the 3.5-ish months, it's about 23 million per month.
Okay, thank you.
The goal is 25 million, so we're still a little short. Next slide, please. So for collections, we did have a big decrease in December. Again, we're trying to get caught up in January with all the claims that we've gotten out. It is really on the follow-up team that have been working very diligently on getting the collections up. But again, if you look at the data on the top, the average collection as of January 12th is 10.2 million for the month, which is really much better than the average collections we've had for the last 3 years. Again, in January, we're really working hard. We have all the staff back on board. And one of the things we're doing really with the collections is establishing better relationships with our payers. We're back to meeting every month or more frequently if required, sending them the receivables list so we can reconcile every month. So it's really just about collaborating and communicating with the payers every month to ensure that we get the collections that we need. We've become much more aggressive even with Medicaid. In the Medicaid side, we did experience a decrease in the collections in December, but when we met with them, they explained that they also had the same staffing issues. So they had a lot of staff on leave and were not able to process a lot of the claims that we had sent over. So they are addressing that right now. We met with them last week, and so we should be back on track with the Medicaid claims.
What is the goal of collections?
11 million.
Per month?
Yes.
Okay, can we just stop right here? If you don't mind, so the senators can ask. And can we go back to the previous slide under billing? Okay, thank you. So the gold color represents 2024. The dark blue right next to it is 2023. And then the other years are shown on those bars as well. So 2021, 22, 23, and 24. Yes. So yes, at the end we can see the gold bar has increased above all the other years. Thank you, that's great. Can you just explain why there are no gold bars, meaning no billing for 2024 for February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September?
Those are still for the rest of the fiscal year, so we're still in January right now. So the gold bars will...
this is for 2024, not fiscal year 2024. Okay, so February, all right. So there were no months where there was no billing?
No, we always bill.
Okay, so this only goes back then to August. So from August till today, right? August.
So for fiscal year 2024, with the
Why
gold
August?
bars, we started in October. So the gold bars in October, November, December, and January represent the bills that had been sent out for this fiscal year.
Okay.
And January, we're only halfway through the month. That's why it's kind of
okay.
low.
So October, you're saying that your billing was brought up to speed as early as October?
We really ramped up the billing actually last year in August, which was still FY 2023. That's when we really started pushing a lot of the bills out. We finally hired a business office manager, so that was one of the key areas that just needed to come together. And from the leadership of the business office manager and then the coordination with coding, the bills were able to go out a lot more starting in August. We did have a bit of a dip in December due to just staffing issues that we're trying to make up for in January.
All right. But when you came in and said the 30 million that you were behind was because you weren't able to catch up with billings? Is that because of the months of, I can see March is reduced compared to the prior year, April is
Yes.
reduced, those 2 months especially?
Yes, those are the months where we didn't have a system, so we could not get a lot of claims out at all until we got the system fully functioning. They were just trying to do whatever was possible at that time, and the billings were very low for those months.
All right, so for the year, let's say, well, I guess the fiscal year ended. It's confusing to me, but the fiscal year already ended for 2023. We are not going to be able to capture the losses in March and April that were unbilled. We weren't able to catch up with that billing. And
No,
bring them
we
in.
still were able to push those out later, but I will admit that in March and April, we did not even have some documents to even complete the claim. So those were not able to, we would have to either write those off or settle. Yeah.
All right, so your goal's 25. Currently, as of January, your average monthly is 23. December was okay, November was okay, October. So the last 3 months, you've been doing very well. So you expect that to continue, or do you foresee any issues with the billing?
I expect it to continue if we are fully staffed without any unexpected issues, really. I mean, we know with even the weather, the typhoon, really, we haven't had a typhoon in so long. And then when we did have the typhoons, the staff were home for 3 or 4 days because they couldn't come to work. We were still in condition 1 or 2, so they had to stay home, and that impacted us. When we have a surge in the flu and COVID, that also impacts us as well. Even when their family members get sick, they still have to stay home because of close contact. So we're even thinking about, is there ways that we can have the staff even remotely work at home if they're feeling okay? Just so we're starting to think about things like that, because it really didn't dawn on me that all of these issues, it's really just staffing that that seems to be the biggest factor.
All right, well, to their credit, in May and June, after the typhoon, it looks like billing was up compared to
Yes.
previous years.
Yes.
July went down a little, but all right, well, thank you. So very quickly, if we just could show the collection slide one more time. December is down, and you said you're explaining the down of collections in December. What is the explanation?
The biggest portion of that was reduced collections for Medicaid. So Medicaid pays every week, but we did notice there was a decrease in the collections for December. And when we followed up with public health, they did say that they did have some staffing issues on their end as well. Without any staff to process the claims, then we can't get paid.
All right, but you will get paid.
Yes, because
right.
we notified them right away that you got to process these claims.
Okay, so is collections, would you say it's going as planned, or are you having issues now?
I would say it's not perfect, it's not ideal. We definitely still have room for improvement, but I do notice that now that we're talking a lot more with the payers, it is making it a lot easier.
You mean the insurance companies?
Yes, yes.
All right, and I think you talked to me and you told me it's actually going well with them, that
Very
they
well,
seem
yes.
very cooperative?
Yes.
All right, that's good. And so do you still expect that we're only going to collect like 50% of the billings for this year?
Yes, because of the 3 M's, we don't get reimbursed dollar for dollar for Medicare and Medicaid. So that will never be 100%. And then we do have our self-pay population that will never pay 100% either. When we do bill the insurance companies, those are expected to be very close to 100% because the whatever the insurance does not pay, it is the patient's responsibility, and that will drop to the self-pay bucket. But then if we have a denial, that will cause the claim not to be paid entirely.
All right, I'm sorry then. Under billing, you billed Medicare in FY 2023 $57.9 million. You're saying that's based on the rates that you know they are not going to pay.
Yes, yes.
And you received $15 million from Medicare, and that's kind of what we already knew we would get paid. We are getting everything that you expected from Medicare.
No.
No?
I think we can get more.
How?
Now that we're working more diligently on getting the claim, if we don't bill the claim, we won't get paid anything at all. So one of the things is also once the claim goes through, we have to follow up on that claim. We can't just sit and forget about it. We have to follow up and see what happened and wait a certain period of time. Why didn't we get paid? So that's what we're really stressing with the staff right now is once the claim goes out the door, we can't just forget about it. We still need to follow up diligently, whether it's an insurance company, Medicare or Medicaid or anybody, and find out why the claim was not paid.
All right, maybe in future you could give us a column that where you're billing for Medicare, you give us an amount that you actually hope to collect.
Expect to collect.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And then Medicaid, can you just explain why Medicaid, FY23, you billed Medicaid 79.3 and only received 44.7? Why would, I understand the Medicare, but not the Medicaid.
Medicaid reimburses us very similarly to Medicare, so they pay us a per diem rate for the inpatient stay. So we will not collect 100% of a Medicaid claim. So it's exactly what you said about we bill Medicare this amount and what do we expect to get paid. It would be the same situation for the Medicaid claims as well. If we bill this amount, how much do we expect to get paid?
Medicaid can be remedied, can it? Your rates?
The rate?
Mm-hmm.
We're told that it mirrors Medicare's per
Based
cap
on the
per
state
diem.
plan, yes.
Yes.
But the state plan?
The
Yes.
state plan needs to be changed, absolutely, amended.
Our
Our
state
state
plan can be updated,
We
right?
would have to work with CMS.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Is public health working on that, or?
They are working with us to see what the most that we can get. There was even a suggestion for us to just get paid our just the expenses for taking care of Medicaid patients instead of the claim process, because the claim process can be very burdensome. It takes a lot of resources to submit the claim, to adjudicate the claim. But we're still evaluating whether that's really going to be in GMH's best interest. We may just continue sending the claims and then they just pay us.
Right. If there is an issue with the state plan just not being amended fast enough, I guess I'd like to know if that's what the issue is for Medicaid. But for the third-party payers, okay, it was sounding good for a while there, but you billed 66.5 million FY23. You collected 40.5, so that's 20 million less. Can you just explain that?
There are still some claims that have not been paid based on either denials or the amount belongs to the patient share. So one of the issues we're also having in billing is to follow up on the claim and make sure that once the insurance does pay it, that we allocate that portion that the patient should share into the patient shares bucket and not leave it on the insurance claim anymore. This is one of the improvement things that we're trying to do with billing, is really to aggressively follow up on the claim. Like I said earlier, once the claim goes out the door, we don't just sit on it. We need to follow up to make sure after so many days or a month, where is the claim and where's the payment?
All right, and do you find that the third-party payers means the insurance companies, that they are reasonable in their rejection of claims? Or are you finding that you need to engage your lawyer very much in order for them to reconsider?
No, we don't have to engage the lawyer. We usually are able to deal with it. Sometimes it's just the documentation that's missing, and once we resubmit the claim, they'll pay it. That's
Okay.
usually the case.
All right, well, that's good news.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So, Senators, on the billing and collections issues at GMH, Senator Taitakwi, did you have any questions or comments? And you said you haven't rebased the Medicare, that the fiscal team is now who you are looking to help you to rebase
Yes.
Medicare. Yeah, that's really a shame. I thought we had made some really good progress maybe in 2018 in rebasing. I remember the big announcements in 2019, I
But
think.
that did rebase to
Current,
almost
no,
10 years ago,
I know.
our expenses.
it
yeah.
needed like continuous.
It needs to continuously happen.
Yes. Were you able to meet with Saipan? And
Yes.
do you see that to be a process that we could use as well? If you could explain.
Well, we were going to explore critical access hospital designation, which would give us more reimbursement. But when we did talk to Saipan, they are not a critical access hospital. They are exactly in the same boat that we are. But I think what will happen going forward is we'll probably meet with them more often just to share ideas and challenges that we each have. But we are the same. They are a critical access hospital for recruitment of doctors. So in that situation, they're able to hire doctors, and one of the benefits of that is that the physicians can pay back their medical loans, their medical school loans in service.
All right. So I think the last rebasing of Medicare then that was done was under Benita Manglot, yeah?
Yes.
Want to give her some credit today?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Senator Taitakwi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, this has to do with the billing, right, and collections section of the oversight. I just have one question. You know, you talk about the Med Health, and then there was another company, Med something.
MedSphere, is that the one you're referring
Okay, so
to?
Med Health and then MedSphere.
MedSphere.
Right? Are they both doing they're doing different projects, right? Because Med Health was for the collections, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. So that was Med Health. And that one is under investigation right now, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the MedSphere, what does that company do?
That's the vendor, the company that we procured the electronic health record
Okay, the
called
health record.
CareView, and that's what we have right now.
Because a very similar name, are they the same company?
No.
Okay,
They're
different
totally
company.
different.
So on the Med Health Solutions, right? Med Health Solutions, which is under investigation, is that an off-island company?
Yes, ma'am.
And who's your contact person for that?
The CEO is Mr. Glenn Hermes.
Glenn Hermes, who's off-island, doesn't have an office
He's
on
based
Guam?
off island.
Okay, so this company that was hired, I don't want to get too much into it because I know you're under, you know, and this is under investigation. And you'll probably tell me, since your attorney's here, on what you can answer and what you cannot answer. But can you tell me how soon, it was in the paper recently about, you know, the Med Health Solutions and the investigation the Attorney General is doing right now. It's just wondering how soon is that Did they tell you how soon they're going to be giving you an answer or anything? Or is it as bad as going in? Are they indicting anybody or?
We haven't heard. I haven't been indicted, so we haven't heard anything from the Attorney General other than what's
Okay,
in the
so
media.
they haven't started the line of questioning yet for you guys? No line of questioning has been brought up to you guys yet for this?
No, ma'am.
Nobody, okay. Okay, so the other one was
Medsphere?
Sphere, right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I see that. We're going to talk about that when we get further down. But other than that, just, so who's doing your collections now?
Our own staff.
Okay, so it's in-house now, right? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I also had, when I received the audit, asked the Attorney General to pursue in any way he can the over $4 million in question costs from the vendor. I did not know at the time that they had already been paid and I think I had also written to you that if we have not paid them, to consider what we could do regarding these question costs. So I'm looking to, for action on the question costs, $4 million. So I think that would really help GMH. Thank you. Senator Blas.
Hey, Madam Speaker. Ms. Echanova, since you started to work on getting the books back up and getting back up to speed, what are some of the challenges that you still see in billings and collections that's holding you back?
Recently, it's really the staffing. So just making sure that everybody is at work and not having to deal with so many absences. So in December, November, the holidays, we have several staff that take planned leave, which is fine. You know, we have to work around that. But then when unexpectedly these other things happen, it really impacts the production. So we had the flu, we had COVID, we had some deaths in their families, just unexpected things. So we're thinking more critically about, well, we still need to carry on and still get the bills out. So authorizing overtime, working on the holidays, just whatever, on the weekends even, just to get the production up. Those are the things that we are instituting right now. And then we're also thinking about the possibility of remote work for those that are just quarantined and are feeling fine. They can still be productive at home. Those that are at home that are really sick, of course, we wouldn't do that. But if they were willing to work at home and still maintain the productivity, we're considering that as well.
Okay. So you said right now one of the biggest challenges is your staffing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How many coders do you have?
We have 9.
You have 9 coders.
We have 9 coders.
That's sufficient for what you...
We can always use more coders. The coding is probably one of the areas where we're really falling behind, especially since, well, when the EHR went live, when the network shut down, we didn't have, coding has to be done daily, all the time. Ideally, when the coders come into work today, they should be coding yesterday's discharges, but they're still coding discharges from maybe a month or 2 ago. So we're pretty far behind. So we're trying to think of ways where we can get more production out of them. And one of the things is their computers are not working optimally. So we have an order for them to all get new computers. We're just waiting for them to come in. So we're hoping that that will help with the productivity for the coders.
So how many coders do you have 9 on staff right now?
Yes.
How many coders do you, not to get you up to speed, but to get you at speed? If you were...
I think we just need to get temporary help just to get us caught up. So I was even thinking about how we can outsource just temporarily to help us get caught up. When we did shut down for almost 2 months, it really impacted the way the coders can get to those claims on time. So it may be that we need temporary help maybe for a month or 2 just to help us get up to speed.
How much are we losing, or how far behind are we in this in as far as billing by monetary?
When I checked, it looked like the coding is behind about 2 months.
What
They're-
is- what
I
is
think they're on
2
November.
What is 2 months of behind? How much is that in
Well,
value?
we bill about 20 to 25 million a month. And so, but then again, the coders also prioritize high dollar and those that are reaching timely filing. So they do have a way of still looking at what claims need to be billed right away. So even if they're back to November, there may be some in November that they did still push through, maybe based on their discussion with the billing team or the business office manager on pushing a certain claim out so that it can get out on time.
So when you say you're about a month or two behind, and at $22 million a month, so you're behind about $45 million?
Right now, the amount is 25 million.
Okay, let's take us to the process. Once the coding is done, you've successfully coded. What's the next process? What's the next step? And as far as how does it get from the time the services are provided to the time the services are paid for?
So after it's coded, it will go to the billing side and they will shoot the claim out to the different payers. And then we have 45 days to get paid.
Is there a backlog in the billing right now?
Yes, because of the coding.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the revenue cycle is one area is really dependent on the other area getting their job completed.
Okay, recognizing that your coding is, you're behind about 2 months. But with the work that the billing department has right now, are you behind in that?
Yes.
Being it,
Yes.
okay, by how much?
About a month or two.
Okay. I'm asking these questions because I'm trying to figure out, obviously, one of the ways we want to be able to generate the revenue for you is, okay, let's find out where the priorities are. How are we going to be able to get you what you need so that you don't have that issue with, I've read many times, you say, you're having trouble, squeezing a nickel from the two bleeding pennies that you have between your fingers.
Yes.
Okay, and so I'm trying to, okay, these processes, what are the challenges in a lot of these processes? So obviously coding,
Yes.
you're sorely lacking in as far as those individuals provided. You're about 2 months behind just in the coding. Then you're another 2 months behind in the billing. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
And at $22 million or $25 million,
25.
that's 4 months, that's $100 million.
No. Our unbilled right now is at 25 million, which means there's 25 million of claims sitting on the coding side.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So we are hoping that if we get the computers and that resolves their productivity issues as far as the software and the technology that they need, because they really do have very old computers, and it could cut their time in half just to get the claim out if the computer is working faster.
Is there help available on Guam? Is there a place on Guam you can get help in coding, for coding?
Yes, there are. That could temporarily help us. So we are exploring that possibility of outsourcing for temporary.
Okay. When you're talking about your return and investment, your cost ratio on this thing, how much more money can you gain by spending a little more money to get your coders?
Exactly, yes. So that's why we authorize the overtime. Coding is
I'm
little
hoping
bit...
this is the kind of a discussion you're getting from your fiscal management, financial management team. This is why I went back to my initial question. Okay? You got a financial team that was put in place by executive order 3 months ago. Okay, so are these part of the discussions that you?
Yes, because they watch, I have to send reports to them, and so when we meet, we're prepared to discuss what the challenges were for a decrease in collections, or even like what are some of the wins that we made that month, what works, what doesn't work.
Okay, based on what we just discussed, is it anywhere enumerated on your PowerPoint? Is it anywhere discussed in the PowerPoint that you provided?
For the committee, you mean? No.
But it's relevant, the discussion? Do you feel that the discussion that we had over the last 5 minutes was relevant to the concerns and the challenges that you had here?
Yes.
Okay, because you know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, and I'm just doing some research. I'm like, okay, how do we help you with this? And I appreciate, you know, what we had just discussed. I guess there was a report a couple weeks ago about how much you were going to write off in as far as your billings. How much was that? And
I think it was 2.8 or 2.9 million, possibly.
okay, why? What was the justification?
We are slowly chipping away at the accounts receivable. It is a monster. So with our new processes and us really taking a better look at the AR, I mean, we have accounts on there from 1997 even that we cannot collect that.
That's not meritorious bonus, right?
I'm sorry?
And that's not meritorious bonus?
No. These
Okay, I'm just checking.
These are just receivable. These are claims that have been sitting on our AR for a decade. Yeah. So we want to clean it up, make it more manageable. If you make the receivables, the accounts receivables more manageable, it's easier for the staff to manage as well. So in order to collect, they need a good accounts receivable report of accounts that are really collectible, not from 1997 or 2000 even. Those cannot be collected. So they are reviewing each of those accounts to see which ones are going to be put on a list that we send to our board for approval for write-off, and explain why it needs to be written off.
Okay. Quantify your monstrous AR.
Right now, the gross AR is $360 million.
Wow.
Going all the way back to really I think 1997 was the oldest claim on that report.
How do we manage a 300?
Exactly. So we want to make it manageable so that we are spending more effort on those claims that we really can do something about. When the staff look at that kind of an AR report, they become overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. So getting it to a manageable level will help them in their processes to collect and follow up on the claims.
What kind of activity, what kind of bills make up that AR? What's the majority of that?
Self-pay.
Self-pay?
Self-pay.
Kind of figure.
Self-pay is 200, I think that was 280 million, maybe.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Senator Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm looking at the comparison between billing and collections, the graphs. And so just looking at Medicare alone, the billing for 2023 was a total of 57.9 million, but yet the collections was 15.1 million. So what is the expectation that we were going to receive the remainder of the funds? Or what is the timeline that you normally give, that's normally given to receive those payments?
That is dependent on the payer. For example, if it is an insurance company, third-party payer, they are supposed to pay us within 45 days. So the expectation is in 45 days we get the payment for that claim, for those, for the third-party payers. For self-pay, we send a statement of account every month for between 4 and 6 months, but those are due immediately, or they need to come in and make a payment plan. For Medicare and Medicaid, Medicare pays within 2 weeks. Medicaid pays also within the month.
Okay, because there's a huge gap between what was billed and what's collected in 2023. So what was the reason for that? I mean, considering your timeline is 2 weeks for Medicare, why is there such a huge gap?
Those are the claims that we need to follow up on and see what happened. So like I explained earlier, a big part of our billing problem has been not following up on the claim. So even if we're very good at getting the claim out the door, there's still a process that needs to follow in a timeline, of course, to follow up on what happened to the claim. So if we fix the AR and make it more manageable for the staff to monitor and notice what claims are not getting paid, then they will be guided accordingly on where to follow up on that claim. And it has to be done in the right timeline as well. We can't wait a year and go, oh, this claim was never paid. We really need to act on it now.
Okay, so is there a sunset period for Medicare reimbursement?
We have 1 year to bill Medicare, but the follow-up on that is, I believe, indefinite. Once we've billed it, we can still get paid, but we just need to follow up on it.
Okay, to what extent is this a product of the IT that you have, the computer system that you have?
So we have our patient accounting system that does manage the patient accounts and the billing. So a lot of that are the reports that we pull from the system to help us monitor the claims. That is the basis, that's the data that we use to look at the reports every day on where the claims are. We have many reports that we look at daily to manage that follow-up process.
So would you say it's robust in flagging any late payments, or is it more intensive? Is there a lot of
It's more intensive. I think a newer system may possibly be able to get rid of a lot of the manual processes that we have to do right now, which is ideally, that's what we want. We want something that we can open up every day and it'll just tell us in a dashboard exactly where the claim is, what we need to do, and how to follow up. Right now, with some of the issues we're having with the EHR interfacing with our patient accounting system, there are a lot of manual processes that we have to do, but we have been able to do that. We have to do it in order to get the claims out and to follow up on the claims. So, but there are a lot of manual processes in order for us to monitor this.
Okay, so the other question, so I just want to confirm the information that you provided, because in one of the charts it states that your collection for April 2023, generally the pattern is the collection is less than the billing. Is that correct?
Yes, but it should be the same ideally, right? We want it to be the same, but we will not collect every dollar for the claims, particularly for the 3Ms.
Because there's a spike in 2023. So in this case, it's the inverse relationship where you have more collection than billing. So I'm just wondering if that's accurate in April.
We had, so April was the month immediately following when we had to shut the network down, and we were scrambling for cash. We did not bill, and we were just really in a bad place. DOA did advance us Medicaid money so that we could make payroll and pay some vendors that month. So that's why there's a spike in it.
How much have you lost because the delay in coding? Is there any amount because you didn't code it within 90 days?
I can't hear. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Do you lose collection if you don't code within 90 days?
Do we lose the collection?
Yes.
Depending on the payer, they give us 90 days to submit the bill. So if we don't submit the bill within 90 days, and if we do, it will come back denied for exceeding the timely filing.
And how much have you lost?
I don't have that exact number.
Do you know for 2023, for example, what was lost and unable to bill?
Due to not meeting the deadline, I don't have that exact number. I can provide it later, but I don't have that right now.
Sorry, Senator, the 25 unbilled claims that you currently have, that's current, right? Those are just the current ones from the past, what time period?
They should go back to about a year.
So for over a year, for a 1 year period, you've got 25 unbilled that you think you can still bill?
Yes.
All right. But we're asking for, I guess, unbilled, unable to bill because you've exceeded 90 days in the past year. You don't know that amount?
Not off the top of my head, but we do have some claims that if it's not ready to go in 90 days, we've lost it. And sometimes...
No, for example, that you were unable to bill because your system was down.
Yes, that was
April,
in March.
May. Yeah.
Yes.
March, April. So what was that amount?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Can you give us a ballpark?
Oh, boy. Because we did bill some claims in March, and I think those were mostly Medicare. We were able to bill that because that's all electronic, and we had some claims that were still sitting on, that had not been pushed out, so those went out. But for the month of March, I guess if we do 12, I feel like it could be close to 10 million.
Thank you. Senator Paris, sorry.
Just one more question. So it's my understanding that the IT system is more of a patchwork system. So like you said, it creates these situations where you have to resort to manual reporting or manual review. Is there an effort or initiative within GMH to develop more of an integrated system, such as a patient relationship management system, to have more of a seamless approach to patient care, as well as potentially, would that affect the ability to catch any accounting or billing
Yes,
issues?
that is what we really, really want. As Mr. Kando pointed out, the EHR RFP will be going out, and part of that is the patient accounting system that will interface with the EHR. So at that phase of the procurement is when we will start exploring what that part of the system will be. But for now, we have to deal with what we have, and we have been. The staff have been very good about creating workarounds and what reports to look at in order to make sure that we can still bill properly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your responses, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Paris. Senator Barnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have questions about the mold report. Ms. Lillian? Sure. Yeah, can you just give me a general overview? Because I wasn't sure if I had read in the media that you hadn't released the report, but you are in receipt of the mold report. It's in your possession?
Yes, yes, Senator. Thank you for that question. And it is in our presentation, PowerPoint presentation. I believe it's slide
23.
20. Okay, all right. So as noted by, prepared by Mr. Kando, essentially that's the, in a nutshell, that's basically the mold report. Sorry, page 21.
I do see its reference here on page 23, but there's not much about the actual condition of the mold in the hospital. But there, you do have here listed under CIP, you have subject reports from the contracted industrial hygiene firm. You're in the process of sharing reports to the GMHA board. You're already leaning towards implementing the recommended actions, which include removal, replacement of ceiling tiles, and HVAC system upgrades. But just reading between the lines, it sounds like the mold is like, how would you describe it? Because I'm not sure that the public has been able to avail of the report itself.
Okay. Well, we're not denying that we don't have mold. We have mold, of course, and it's just got exacerbated with the air conditioning unit going down. But we are mitigating. We are replacing the ceiling tiles for any obvious mold, but it's really deeper inside that we need to clean the ducts, and so we're going to be doing some RFP for that service. But the recommendation from the industrial hygiene professional is not to get to that point yet. We need to really fix all these other stuff first before we do those wall hardening and duct cleaning. So we are, and in terms of the board, we are discussing it with the board. We want to give them that respect that, you know, as governing body, we want them to see the full report and engage in some kind of a discussion and ask the questions. But we're here now in the public hearing, so
Yeah,
therefore.
No, I get it. I'm not saying you're denying that there's mold. I'm just, and maybe you could just answer on the record, have you denied giving out this report to any like media entities or any individuals? And then what was the basis of it, of that denial?
If I may clarify, please don't twist the word that we're denying it. We're not denying it. We want to make sure that we give the governing body first the respect to looking at that document before we present it out to the public. So it's not that we're denying it.
I know. I mean, I'm just familiar with so for example, in a freedom of information request, you wouldn't be able, that's not a justification that, oh, you want to give the board the respect. So it's a draft.
It's still a draft, yes.
So you're
it's still
saying
a
it's a draft
draft
report, okay.
Correct.
So are you able to just share with the viewing public anything from this draft report that's related to how widespread the mold is at the hospital?
Basically what we have in the slide 23, it is throughout the whole hospital. The industrial hygienist professional took some samples from 40 different sections of the hospital. And so they did the analysis of it. And what they analyzed was the carbon content, the temperature setting, and the relative humidity. And that's what they reported on.
And those are all factors that contribute to the growth and the spread of the mold, but was there anything?
Correct, that's where mold grows.
Right.
You know, the temperature, the humidity, correct.
Was there anything in the draft report about the potential health effects that may be brought on by the presence of this mold?
Not by the industrial health hygienist professional, did not really say what those risks are for the patient, but just the facts as far as what the contents you know, in the environment.
And I only ask because GDOE is kind of going through the same thing, right? They've had, well, obviously, there's a very public attempt by GDOE to avail of this same kind of service. So, I mean, I told them GMH had the industrial hygienist. And so I get that, you know, the mold is in there, but what I'm more worried about perhaps is the Guam Memorial Hospital undertaking any efforts to examine the type of mold and the potential health impacts of this mold?
The samples that were taken, analysis, they're not analyzed here. They have to go off island. And so for specific type of mold, you know, because there are different kinds of mold. So it's not done here. The analysis is not done locally. It would have to go off island. And we did make some collection. I think, was it our infection control nurse that got some samples? But because we weren't able to send it off, we didn't get the analysis of it.
So we have taken samples with your infection control people, but these samples have not been sent off island for analysis?
We didn't send them off. In the pharmacy department, the chief of pharmacy did some, a couple of years ago, he did some sampling, because, you know, we really need to make sure that in the preparation of IV admixture, that area has to be very sterile. And so they did some sampling on that one a couple of years ago, and they were able to identify the kind of mold and what mitigation needed to be done to maintain the sterility of that admixture environment.
So do you have any intention to send off the samples that were recently collected relative to
Well,
this?
we're going to need to do a recollection. We can't send those samples that we already collected. Those are already no good. So we have to get new sample collection. And, you know, we'll do that. Before and after.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lillian, why weren't the initial samples sent out for analysis?
Was it? I can't remember the reason why it wasn't sent off. We weren't able to.
I think it was mostly, you know, we just didn't have a process in place to do that. We didn't have a contractor to send it to, and that's really why we got a professional industrial hygiene
Yes.
firm to do it. So, I mean, the testing by the firm, you know, is quite sufficient, and it indicated in the report quite.
Well, we don't know what's indicated in the report because we haven't seen it.
Yeah. In the meantime, while we're waiting to share it with, the opportunity to share it with the board, I mean, we're not waiting to act on the recommendations. We're actually proceeding. We've been replacing the ceiling tiles. If there's any visible mold, we're
I get that,
cleaning it,
Mr.
we're
Kando.
acting on it.
I'm just saying that when I look at what you have here on page 20 of your report, and it says up here mold spore testing, and then this is all these are the mitigations you're going to have to undergo. So I'm just asking, is there any information that we can give the people of Guam, and more importantly, the patients at the Guam Memorial Hospital, about the type of mold and the potential health impacts? Because you're saying you took some samples, and then we don't even know what happened to the samples. And so now we're looking at taking more samples, and I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, draft document or not. People have a right to know,
There's really
Mr.
no
Kando.
need to take more samples. The firm that we hired did all that. And we're acting on that report, and we're going to have an opportunity this month to share it with our BOT subcommittee on facilities, CIP-IT, and then the full board will see it, and then we'll inform the staff and the public. It's not a problem, but we're already leaning out. We're actually implementing the recommendations in the report that's been furnished to us.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what you have the administrator here saying that you took samples with infection control. They were never sent off for analysis. She's now saying that we're going to take new samples. You're saying they already took the samples. But all I'm saying is when you have to do this much to mitigate the presence of mold, it to me seems very serious. And that's all I'm saying, is that the people have a right to know. I don't know if the intention here is to keep this under the veil of a draft document so it's not released to the public, but that's what I get when I read between the lines of what I've seen in the media. So that's why I wanted to ask here on the record. So thank you.
And we take it very seriously.
Yeah, I hope so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if anything, I mean, there hasn't been any, knock on wood, hospital-acquired fungal infection. Sorry. We will revisit it and again take some samples, and maybe we can do that before we make the really in-depth, deep dive mitigation of those ducts and walls.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to just follow up on a couple of things. So the RFPs, you said the projects listed under the ARP 20 million, those were reported to the board as what your priorities are going to be. They did not necessarily have to approve that. However, they have to approve this mold mitigation, or you have to wait until they see the report before you proceed with this?
It's not so much that they approve the report, but give them the opportunity to at least read the report before it gets, because it is still in a draft. And so to give them that opportunity to read the report in its full, text. So.
All right. Would you say there's an overlap between some of these mitigation projects and the use of the 20 million in ARP funds?
Yes, the overlap being those projects that have to do with the HVAC upgrade. I mean, that's really the main permanent or long-term fix for making sure that we don't have mold proliferating in the hospital. When we stabilized earlier in the year, when we actually stabilized, after MAWA, we stabilized our main chillers. That was huge as far as, mitigating the proliferation of mold. But many of the AHUs that we still need to replace, that's where your warm pockets are. It's the AHUs that we need to continue to replace. And so those are the areas that we've put other measures in place, like portable ACs, split ACs, any kind of warm pockets, because that's where your high humidity is. That's where your temperature difference is.
Okay, let me rephrase. So are these projects that are listed under the mitigation for the mold also listed under the 20 million for the ARP. In other words, they're going to get done using ARP money. If you haven't already done them.
Much of it, the ARP in its entirety will not pay for all of the AHUs, because 25 out of 64, these are fairly expensive. So no, the 20 million will cover a portion of it, but not all of it.
All right. And so the balance is coming from where?
I missed the question.
The balance of how to take care of the mold or the mold mitigation list that you have. If it's not paid by ARP, where will you get the balance of the money needed to mitigate the mold?
Our operation revenues. We would have to use our operation revenues.
All right. Can you just reaffirm your operation revenues, let's say for fiscal year 2024 alone, have they met, not including the 30 million or the 20 million ARP, are they meeting what you projected for us in the budget hearing for FY 2024?
Not entirely, no. We need collections of at least 11 million a month. As of December, we are about 2.5 million short of that goal.
All right, and in your budget projection of revenue, was mold mitigation included in your planned use of the revenue?
No, ma'am.
Right, so you're already short on revenue. You have not predicted these costs, so you seem to me to be doubly short in that regard. So I don't, that just doesn't seem like a feasible plan at this point. Can you please talk to your fiscal team about that, your fiscal advisors that you meet with every month? All right, what I'd like to do, because of the time, is to go fast forward. We're going to not talk in detail about the nurse pay. I know you have a big, because we did put in a bill to fund it at the amount that you requested. We did get a fiscal note from BBMR saying that amount is available. They also said you can use the 30 million. There's still balance from 30 million available. I believe DOA has the capability to reassess nurses' pay and to study your plan. You have a way to change the base pay. And hopefully we will hear this in detail from either the hearing we have on the bill or from DOA when they do a reassessment or when the board decides to use part of the 30 million for this, all right? So I'm just going to fast forward on that part for now and address it when we can. Hopefully we are going to be taking care of the nurses in one of those ways. All right, but if we could go forward to the, we did the billings and collections and the coding. Let's just, any more questions on the EHR? I want to confirm. So when you talked about the EHR, we're going to go out for a new RFP, for a new EHR. You're hoping to do a whole new financial system too, and it's part of this EHR RFP. That might be very costly. And this is going to be funded through ARP, part of the 20 million, okay? And you expect to take care of it? It looks like it's only going to take care of 1 million for an EHR system.
And we're not, Speaker Terlaje, we're not really clear yet on what that cost for the first year will be because we haven't negotiated a price yet. We think that cost could run anywhere from 1.5 million to 5 million. We don't know.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm worried about, is whether you've actually set aside enough money for this EHR system, because you're banking a lot on a new EHR system. Can I ask, and this was not part of this audit that we just saw, but who procured, I know you said it was recommendation of the old vendor. Who did that procurement of the expansion of your EHR system to the system that you currently are with MedSphere? And who was the MedSphere contact for that?
The Midsphere contract is the company
Yeah,
that we
who was the
then-
contact for that?
Well, it started out with the Cantata vendor that we work with, that we are contracted for the old EHR, which is the Optimum. When they were sunsetting that, they recommended that we then reach out and work with MedSphere, because they were an affiliate company. So rather than going through the RFP process, we were just going through the novation process. So we contracted them, we purchased their product.
Did that require AG approval?
Because it wasn't an RFP, it was just a novation. It did not require an AG approval, is what I understand.
All right.
And we did not go through the AG.
Did it require a new certification of funds available?
Some of it, yes, because we're still paying the current vendor, and it really was supposed to be where we transfer that payment to, and that's what happened, was all the payments now go to MedSphere.
All right, but is it the same amount or more?
It's a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how much have you paid MedSphere?
We pay right now about $110,000 a month.
But in total? Total for the system that you're not happy with, in other words, about over $4.5 million?
Yes, around there.
All right, and what's the time period again on that?
For the EHR,
Yes, that you've been paying MedSphere.
we started in 2020.
All right.
We started paying them in 2020.
That's just a couple of years, right? And so that's why I'm worried that your estimate for a new EHR system might not be adequate. And I'm afraid we're going to continue to hear about this. Is the it's just a little unusual, right? If there was no RFP for that, but we entered into a new contract, and now we're looking at what's the other one? The one that was audited?
MedHealth. that's the-
MedHealth.
RCM. MedHealth is the RCM.
Okay, yes. And they made allegations, well, the audit says findings, not allegations anymore, of preferential treatment towards the hiring of the contractor. They describe how it was an unsolicited offer, kind of very similar to what you're describing with the MedSphere, where the company comes and tells you, this is what you need, we can do this for you. There's certain procurement laws when there are unsolicited offers. It talks about deficiencies in complying with Guam's procurement law and regulations, but most importantly, the compensation to the contractor, the results that we got out of the contractor, and the $4.9 million in question costs. Does GMH have any follow-up action to this audit? For example, does GMH on its own, are you able to pursue any type of breach of contract or reimbursement of the question costs or anything like that? Or in your view, is this just a wash and you're done with all of this despite the audit?
Regarding the MedHealth
Yes.
RCM contract, we terminated the contract in November, and so we felt that we don't, but they did invoice us for some of the November but they didn't do anything for us in November. They really did not provide service for us, and therefore we're disputing that invoice.
All right. The allegation by the auditor, the finding of, it looks like preferential factors indicative of preferential treatment towards the hiring of this contractor. Who are they talking about? Who in GMH does that?
Madam Speaker, when we were called to meet with this gentleman from the Med Health. He presented a PowerPoint presentation as far as, they're willing to come and do a cost-free assessment on our financials and where some of the gaps are for us that we're not capturing, such as some of the nurses who provide medication. We can capture that service. Our ER charge rate was very low. We were charging $90 compared to some of the hospitals. Our charge master, we only have about 17,000 items in our charge master, when really for a hospital our size, we could have 70,000 items that we can charge. So those were some of the things that they identified, when they did the assessment, and some of the training that they were willing to provide, and where we were disconnected with our patient affairs, with our billing. And so, that was the unsolicited, and so we engaged in an MOU with the statement that there was no promise that we were going to contract them, and it was just for that short period that they were going to do that cost-free assessment and provide us with the report. And so when they provided us the report, we issued out an RFP. Although that RFP did not get, it was not materialized, we canceled it out because the statement in there was that it was going to be a fixed rate. And our concern with that was that what if we don't collect? What if they don't help us collect a certain amount? That's why we went with the contingency rate, which is similar to what they do with American Samoa, because they were also contracted by Samoa. So that first RFP was canceled. It did not go through. Then we reissued a new RFP, which was 003-2020. And all of this is really to help us with financing, with our financial situation, so we can then make sure that we sustain our financial status to procure the supplies to provide patient care. That's really the ultimate goal, is for them better patient care. Unfortunately, when we were going through the process, it did not really materialize to what we expected from this contractor. And so that's why we terminated it in November.
All right, so GMH had promised to pay this contractor a percentage of what the contract, or what GMH collected, because the contractor did not do the collections. But if GMH exceeded its collections above a certain amount,
7.2 threshold,
then they would pay the contractor. But the collections were done by GMH, correct? The billings were done by GMH. And part of this amount was also including Medicare and Medicaid,
yes.
Which my understanding is there is nothing that GMH can improve on to collect more from Medicare or Medicaid except for getting its bills out and rebasing its rates.
A big,
And follow through.
but we really needed to get those bills out. So as an example, in the 16 months before we contracted MedHealth, our billings were about $8 million a month. And then when the period of the contract, it was up to 9.9 a month. Now, currently in this post-contract period, because I've been monitoring, how we're doing compared to contract period, previous to the contract period, and now the post, we're billing 9.3 a month average. So we're not exactly at that level that we were when the contractors were here, but I think we're doing pretty good subsequent to the contract. And as far as collections, we were collecting on average about, we were billing 22 million a month. Now we're at 20 million a month. So the billing is almost at that level that when we had the contractor here. But prior to them coming on board, we were billing 15 million a month. So there was an improvement in the bills going out. And then on the collection side, we were collecting in the months before the contract, 8 million a month. Then we were collecting 9.9 million. Now we're collecting 9.3.
So what happened then after the contractor left that you're saying you're not able to do the same type of collection?
We had several issues. We ended the contract in November. Our EHR went live at that same period of time. So we had the issues with the EHR, and then we had the network shut down in March. There was just
So it's not
2023
related
was-
to the contractor that your billings went down after the contractor was terminated, right?
No, we just had some unexpected things
Yeah.
come up.
Completely
that it was a bad year.
unrelated issues.
Yes.
And what is it that the contractor did that you think you're giving them credit for your increase in collections? What did they do that you think
They really
deserve
helped
that
us.
credit?
The biggest change is the bill scrubber and the claim scrubber. That was a big project that we had.
Is that a software?
Yes. So now we're, well, let me give you an example. For Medicare, for example, we could only bill Medicare in the mornings because that's the only window that the claim processing part of Medicare is open. So we only had until like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning to bill. It really limited our ability to get any claims out. When we finally got the bill scrubber on board, now we can bill Medicare anytime, night, day, afternoons, anytime. So that has greatly improved on the productivity of getting the Medicare claims out.
Okay, so the bill scrubber was something you purchased at their recommendation?
Yes, we knew that we needed to get a claim scrubber, and so they
You knew
helped us.
before or after the contract?
We knew before.
Okay.
We knew before that we needed something to help us with the claims. And so the timing of when they came on board versus when we were thinking about getting the claim scrubber, so they were able to offer the consultancy services to get us the claim scrubber. But we did it competitively, and then we finally found a contractor to do it. But just the implementation of it was challenging. You don't just pull it off the shelf and plug it in and it goes. We had to set up all the payers, make sure the coding part was right, that the bill was set up correctly, all of those things. So we worked with the claim scrubber company, who was our implementation specialist, plus the consultant, and then our team as well, to get the claim scrubber going.
All right. So in addition to the regular budget that the legislature gave to GMH, we've given $30 million in additional funds for vendor payments pursuant to contracts. We've also given, or the governor's pledged $20 million in ARP for CIP projects, some of these exceeding $250,000 for sure. But in this audit, the auditor's recommendation to GMH was that it revise its procurement planning and pre-evaluation processes to include guidelines and criteria which considers compliance with applicable terms and laws relevant for the type of solicitation used. And so the reason I keep asking, who is doing these RFPs? Is it the same person before and after the audit? Are we going to get a change? Are we going to ensure that our procurement process is in conformance with the law, or are we going to come up with another audit finding regarding GMH and its procurement processes?
Sorry, I think I can help answer this question a little bit too. There is a
Please state your name.
My name is Jordan Paulo, and I'm legal counsel for Guam Memorial Hospital. There is a memo from Guam Memorial Legal Counsel that's attached, appended towards the end of that exhibit. And so this raises one of those kind of conundrums between the public auditor's opinion and the Attorney General's power. The Attorney General, at the time that the Med Health contract was entered into through the procurement process, had approved as to legality and form the Med Health contract at the time, back when it was entered into. That power, because of the size of the procurement, falls with the Attorney General's office, who, by statute as well, is tasked with looking at the procedures used to procure that particular contract and award it at the end. And so the Attorney General at the time had reviewed it and signed off as to legality and form. And so for Guam Memorial Hospital, it was reasonable for them at that time to rely on that certification, both as to the legality of the ultimate contract and the process that led up to the procurement and award. And so public
Okay,
audit.
just a minute. So
Yeah.
what time was that? What AG was that?
That was under, I believe that was under Attorney General Leaving Camacho at the time.
And it was someone in the office that actually signed off on that, not a privately procured attorney at
It was not a
GMH
privately procured
that's
attorney. If you go and look,
delegate-
if you go and look at the final contract, it was signed off by the Attorney General, not even an assistant or a deputy Attorney General.
right.
It was signed off by the Attorney General.
Okay, and then, so for going forward, contracts at GMH, who's going to sign off on them?
So it depends on the type of contract it is. Certain ones that go through the procurement process, including small purchase ones, typically get signed off by the procurement officer. You can even look at the notes, the compiler notes in the statute that go through some of the history that those are intended to bind. The larger ones like this that fall under the Attorney General's 51 section, what's known colloquially as the Section 5150 power, are ones that then would also be signed off on by the actual Attorney General. So part of the problem is the procurement code is really big and really complex, so it's hard to say all contracts going forward because there are different types of awards that come out of these things, and it might actually behoove the legislature and GMH and a bunch in the government to take a look at our procurement code again sometime to simplify this and reduce what I like to call the noise, so there's less confusion as to what source and method and award we're using, but related to this particular type of contract, they would still be signed off by the Attorney General as to legality and form.
Are you saying that GMH has confusion as to which procurement laws it should follow going forward?
No, I'm not saying that there's any, no, we know the procurement laws, they're contained in the statutes.
Are you going to be able to follow them, or are you saying that there's going to be confusion?
I think that the Guam Procurement Code and the corresponding regulations are so large, cumbersome, and complex that there is always going to be a difference of opinion between individuals such as a prior Attorney General and the current public auditor as to what the correct interpretation of the procurement code is supposed to be. GMH follows them given the guidance that they have at the time, and at the time of the MedHealth contract, they were advised by the Attorney General's office that this was legal as to legality. This was both legal and complied in form, and they relied on that approval.
There's only one part of the that goes to the Attorney General's office, and all the rest is done in-house by the Guam Memorial Hospital. And that's, I think, the findings of the auditor was not make sure that the AG gets it right. They said make sure GMH in their procurement rules and is able to follow a process that is consistent with the procurement law and the rules and regulations. So my question to you is, what have you done to ensure that you're going to be able to do that? Because it's their finding, not mine, that you were not able to do that.
And part of what I'm trying to explain is that his interpretation of that, I think, and statements there are a little bit incomplete. When a large procurement under what is 5 GCA section 5150, anything 500,000, I think it's over $500,000 is procured, the Attorney General advises at each stage of that procurement and signs off as to legality and form, as is happened here with the MedHealth contract, right? And so when that process goes on, GMH handles a lot of the negotiations and procurement binder in-house, but involves what is typically an assistant AG at every step of the process, giving them notices of different steps and often consulting with them back and forth. And
okay, I'm just going to stop you right there because it's their findings that say GMH did not involve the OAG throughout the RFP process pursuant to Guam procurement law, which is required when procurement's over $500,000. So they're disputing the actual facts, not your interpretation of the law. They said GMH did not maintain a complete procurement record for the RFP, with notable documents missing, such as the results of the pre-evaluation and the final evaluation of the contractor's proposal. So if GMH did not do that, then obviously that never even got to the Attorney General's office. But they are not, they are very much specifically citing GMH's process.
And I think there are two components to that, because there were two RFPs that were involved in this audit. An initial one that was canceled, and then a subsequent one that ended in an award. There were some deficiencies in the first RFP that were identified by the Attorney General's office at the time, and resulted in GMH doing the right thing and canceling that contract. That is the maximum, not that contract, canceling that RFP. That is the maximum remedy at that time.
And then the auditor talked about the second RFP and said, GMH's procurement regulations define a responsive bidder as, et cetera. And then it says, offerers shall not submit any cost or pricing data with their proposal. However, we found that the contractor was not responsive with the terms of the RFP because there were 2 instances in which the contractor violated the provisions by providing cost or pricing data in its proposal. The appointed evaluators, this means at GMH, which were the same members retained from the previous RFP that was found illegal, did not comment on the appearance of the contractor's non-responsiveness in the opening pre-evaluation or in the final evaluation, since the contractor submitted pricing data with the proposal. The contractor should have been disqualified or a non-responsive bidder. So I'm just saying, so they continue to find internal processes at GMH, and they're making a recommendation in this audit. And this is now our job. So they've made their recommendation, now it's upon you and us to ensure that GMH is going to comply with their recommendations. So I'm asking you, are you going to be able to comply and ensure that your processes going forward are going to be amended as necessary, and that there will be the requisite checklist to follow so that we don't get these type of audit findings, particularly the $4.9 million in question costs?
Correct. Madam Speaker, if I may also bring you back to that same page, page 4. On the second paragraph, wherein in December 2019, GMH attempted to use the sole source procurement to hire the contractor following the completion of a new cost assessment. GMHA's procurement regulations allow for sole source procurement to arise from an unsolicited offer following. But then he cited us that we're not supposed to follow our own regulations. And so we're following our regulations, but he cited us that we should not be following our own regulations.
I don't think you read the whole paragraph, though. Okay, now we're going backwards. So there were 3 attempts to contract with these people. One was, the earliest is the one you're describing, and the later 2 are the ones that your attorney and I were discussing. So the earliest one in December 2019, yes, GMH attempted to use sole source procurement, and you're saying you're allowed to use sole source procurement. However, he also cites in bold, sole source procurement shall not be permissible in any procurement arising from an unsolicited offer.
But it wasn't a procurement, it was a no-cost assessment. So we really weren't procuring their service because we were not paying them for that. So,
well, that
was the
I'm
MOU.
assuming you
It was an
disputed
MOU.
with the auditor's findings, but and sent them all your letters saying it's the AG's fault or whatever, or it's not an unsolicited offer, or it wasn't a sole source procurement. I'm not sure, but they still came out with this finding, right? Mm-hmm.
And I'll follow up
on... The OAG, Office of Attorney General, did not approve the sole source procurement of RCM services and instructed that GMH must go through the RFP process, and that's why they went through the RFP process 2 times. That was the Attorney General who recommended that, right?
The RFP 002 in 2020, when we finished that MOU, the no-cost MOU, then we issued the RFP. That was the first RFP.
Right, but he's saying, anyways, the findings are all there. So he had an issue with your 2019 sole source procurement. He had an issue with the 002 2020 RFP and an issue with the 003 2020 RFP, all 3 of them. The public auditor made findings on that we were just talking about. All right, so I'm just asking, is GMH going to be able to address his recommendations and comply?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, on the EHR, is there any questions from any of the other senators? Senator Blas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, and I appreciate the conversation that we just had, and I had, you know, when the Attorney General comes with a statement saying that he approves the contract as to legality and form, he's not, I think we got to be mindful that he's just making reference, and if anybody knows procurement on Guam, he's just making reference to the document, not making reference to the procedure. If the document was to legality and form, everything else in that process has to be followed by procurement law.
If you look at the section 5150 that requires his approval as to legality and form,
Right.
his approval under that statute carries with it an approval of the procedure leading up to that contract. It's not just the final contract, it's the contract and the entire process that he's approving as to legality and form.
Up to that form, up to that, okay? Everything else after that, you've got to follow procurement law. I think I read that document. I read the OPA report. I read the other supporting documents to it. Okay? And so I appreciate it, and I think that was very simple. And as far as the question that the speaker had asked, is that is GMH now going to take, based on that report, recommend? You may not like the report. A lot of times, I didn't like half the grades my teacher gave me when I was in high school. But guess what? I had to live with it. Okay? I don't want to get hung up on he said, she said. I saw the law. All right? And so I want to move forward from that. Okay? And so I appreciate, again, like I said, this conversation. You know, this EHR, and then Mr. Cano, you said, could be 1 million, could be 5 million. That's a huge delta.
And that's just for year one.
That's just for year one. How much do we anticipate this system to run us or to cost us in its lifespan? And how do we intend to pay for it?
I would say that it's very difficult to tell because the range for, you know, these various vendors and their particular systems is all over the map, anywhere from $5 to $10 million up to $60 to $70 to $80 million. It's that wide of a delta. Okay. And so it really depends on who we decide is the most qualified offerer. Of course, we're going to engage in a you know, intense price negotiation because we want to get the best value for the price as well, and so we would work that out very, very carefully.
And I'm sure this gives Yuka jitters in as far as, okay, how much is this going to cost me? Okay, and you know, I understand and I appreciate that we're looking at, you know, a new system. And that, look, for all the bells and whistles, do we need all the bells and whistles? What are those bells and whistles that we're going to need, and how much is it going to cost us?
And those bells and whistles are also going to be driven by the end users.
Understood, okay? I appreciate this conversation because it goes back to what I've been saying when we're talking about a new facility. If we can't fix it in our existing facility, what are we going to take over to the new one?
I would beg to differ, or my argument or debate would be, we need a real good system now, because if we're going to walk into a new hospital, we better be used to working with a good system. Otherwise, we're going to be you know, really in a stranglehold in implementing effectively operating that new hospital.
It's looking like you're coming back to being a very good friend of mine, Mr. Kando. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. All right, just a couple more items that we're going to discuss today. All right, I just wanted to clarify, Madam CEO, if you could. In 2018, we had made progress in rebasing of Medicare. We had, I believe, GMH was doing okay with its collections through the Attorney General's office. I remember having many discussions with you about this, that they were doing all right. And that was collections, billings. We're now advertising for the hiring of more attorneys at the hospital. And I just want to know, we're also, I guess, had recently hired some other management positions at the hospital, non-clinical, above-step hires. And I remember several years ago, we had raised issue with the above-step hiring of a public information officer at the hospital. And all of this just to make sure that we are using the funds where we really need it at the hospital. And I guess I wanted to ask, has the Attorney General refused to help you with collections? Is that why you're hiring in-house, or what changed?
COVID changed all that. Yes, the Attorney General's office was helping us with the collections, primarily in the self-pay population. And then that ended with COVID, and so our teams were the only ones then doing the collection. We never pursued another agreement with the AG's office to help us with the collection. And so therefore, and then if I may speak on the above-step hires, that yes, the news that went out, and we rebutted it with accuracy, because a lot of those information that went out said that we hired above-step 10. We didn't. Most of those individuals that we hired were at step 7, including the PIO at that time, who was very valuable to us with her credentials. And some of those statements that were issued also, it wasn't a higher above step, it was an intent to change, to amend the pay scale, the pay grade of certain positions, such as nurses' aides. So a lot of that were not accurate information that was published with regards to above step. Now, in terms of the recent hire of an above step, and I know what you're talking about, but I want to clarify rather than assume that it is that position for the Deputy Assistant of Operations, correct? Okay, and this individual, who is very credentialed, certified in accounting, has a master's degree, has experience in with OPA, doing procurement audits, and also with the GCC, her recent employment there, overseeing FM, overseeing IT, MIS, HR, and also procurement. And so we feel she's very valuable and, you know, well-deserving of being brought in, but not at step 10. We're not bringing her in at step 10. We're bringing her in at step 7, above step, which I think is pretty reasonable. And, you know, and that's a tool that is legal for agencies to use to bring in talent. Again, talent that we need to all work together to deliver the patient care that we need to provide. And so that's why I go out and I, you know, recruit at above step. The other individuals that we recruit above step are primarily nurses, radiology technologists, technicians, and respiratory therapists, dietitians, and X-ray. I said X-ray. There was other positions that we recruited for in the clinical setting, which is again is warranted for direct patient care. And so that is a tool that is legal and that we use it.
Yes, and I agree. And I think the issue why I'm bringing these up, because they've been brought to my attention, is just because they are the non-medical side of the hospital.
Correct.
These positions, PIO, deputy operations, and they're not even. And then when you describe the deputy assistant operations, it's not even in the fiscal team, which is under medical division, you said earlier, versus the operations, right? They're two separate divisions, so it's not, these are operations managers or assistant operations managers really very high up, heading the operations department, yet what I had been asked was, do they even have operations experience, hospital operations experience? And I think this is what Guam has always pondered, right? How do we get operations management experience in the hospital? And so that's why I found the questions relevant. So for every hiring that we are doing that is non-medical staff, while we have a nursing shortage and physician shortage and healthcare shortage in general, we just have to account for that. Like
Absolutely.
that is absolutely worth doing in light of, that
And
they're
if I
not being
may-
hired for fiscal, they're being hired for operations of a hospital with no experience in that, and that they're not being hired for medical care either.
But it does tie in, their interface with patient care. In a time of disaster, in a time of the pandemic, we pulled everybody that we could use to help out in different capacities. But again, it was all related to patient care.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Senators, any remaining questions on any topic, this or any of them? Senator Barnett?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit about the above-step recruitment. I think specific to this former PIO, and I think that's the point really, is that the media reports at the time, which I was involved with, had indicated that the hospital was trying to use a range, and then I think the top end of that range was a step 10, but this individual was hired at a step 7. And for me, the takeaway really is that we're going to bend over backwards to do these above-step recruitments, then we got to hire people who are going to be around for the long haul. And that's it, and I agree with Speaker. We're reading about critical shortages with nurses, and then we find out you guys are trying to hire the whole Guam Bar Association. I mean, it just doesn't sit well with the
Can
committee.
I clarify something on the attorney announcement? There were 2 attorneys employed at GMH, me and Jeremiah Luther. The announcement has gone out because Jeremiah Luther, for personal reasons, has taken employment off island and has left GMH. We had to put out an announcement at all 3 levels to create the list of eligibles, but the intent is to hire 1 attorney to replace Mr. Luther, who just left the hospital in December.
Right. But when was he hired? He was only hired in the last year or 2, and then it came from 1 to 2 attorneys at the hospital, right?
We hired 1.
This is the first time I remember 2 attorneys at the hospital.
Well, we're blessed to have, because really with all the litigations and all the risk and the malpractice, and the liabilities, we really need legal advice. And with personnel matters, we do really need their legal expertise. So yes. We're very
Yes, and so
fortunate
that's
to
why I'm
have.
asking, what changed between you and the Attorney General's office that you're no longer able to get that from them?
It was taking long for responses from the Attorney General office when we submit, inquiries and requests for assistance. It was taking long, and they're also handling all other government of Guam agencies, and we've had some, malpractice situations, litigations that we needed an attorney to focus on those cases.
And I would like to add to that, and prior to that, when we hired a private, firm, we're hiring the entire firm, not just 1 lawyer. So I think that was much more costly than what our situation is now.
Okay, well.
Sorry, Mr. Kando, what was that?
Yeah, when we had hired a private firm, legal counsel, in the past, prior to us, using the AG's office, that was quite costly. So we've achieved some cost savings there. We're not just hiring an entire firm. We hired 2 lawyers, and then we're pitching in administratively to meet their needs. So we do have.
Was the departure of the other attorney, Luther, related to the audit? The public auditor came out about the RCM?
No, not at all. It was actually related to some personal family reasons. He has family back in the States, and he needed to be closer to them for some personal reasons. And there were a number of things that were said about him in that process, and the advice that he gave was the same as I articulated and the same in that legal memo. He was also hired, I believe, prior to the beginning of the audit, but also after the MedHealth contract had been procured through the processes as well. So he was coming in later in the process after the RCM contract was already in place.
And just to clarify again, the announcement that this is from the Guam Bar Association. Guam Memorial Hospital Authority is seeking candidates to fill open positions for attorney 1, 2, 3, and 4. Interested members can view more information via the link below. And so you're saying, again, that you're trying to establish a list of eligibles and you're only going to hire one?
The intent is to hire one attorney if we can find. There's also an attorney shortage in Guam, and so making sure we can actually find an attorney as well. But the idea is to establish a list of eligibles at all levels to see what the experience is out there that may be beneficial, and then hire one more to replace Mr. Luther.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, when we see this, join our team, you're accepting applications for the following positions. It doesn't say anything about. We're establishing a list of eligibles, and so that's why I had to ask. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Paris?
I don't have any additional questions regarding attorneys, but just one question about the EHR. Okay. OTEC. Have you got OTEC involved in as a consultant for your IT?
Yes, we are maintaining, since we had the IT network shutdown and restoration, we brought on OTEC. The governor guided OTEC our way, and we've been using them to support sustaining our network and our systems ever since.
In regards to the RFP, the upcoming RFPs, are you going to utilize them as well as consultants?
We will continue to get their guidance throughout that process.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blas. All right, on the topic of attorneys, I was handed a message that says, GMHA board approved a $250,000 settlement in Richardson versus Guam. Richardson was a doctor claiming wrongful termination, but he was at will and not under contract. Case began in 2014. Richardson never filed a timely government claim, so GMHA never had to settle. And this is criticizing the attorney for advising GMHA to settle. Is this, was this a consult with the Attorney General's office? Is this, I'm not that familiar with this. This is not my issue, but.
I can speak briefly on it. That was, I have never personally handled that case. I'm just talking from what I've reviewed in the record. That had been handled by a number of law firms representing GMH over the years, off and on. There was, when Mr. Luther was hired on, he was given a special assistant attorney general appointment to handle that particular case and had been handling it. When the new attorney general administration came in, that special assistant designation was terminated, and so then the Attorney General's office outsourced the handling of that case to a private attorney. So the resolution of that case was handled by Joe McDonald on behalf of the Attorney General's office representing the hospital in litigation.
And Madam Speaker, the reason that the Attorney General outsourced it was they were conflicted themselves with this case of Richardson.
All right, so the board approved a settlement.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with that?
They are, very much. It was discussed with them a couple of times.
Okay, and
in the executive session, yes.
Oh, all right. And so you agree with the settlement?
It was recommended by the legal counsel of Mr. Joe McDonald in his negotiation and discussion with the defendant's legal counsel.
All right.
And if I may add, it
Yes.
was actually down from where it was previously requested to be in the millions
Yeah.
Something like
Well,
2.5
this
million.
allegation is saying that it was not necessary at all because he was hired at will. Are the attorneys hired at will? Could you explain that, Mr.? Yeah.
A lot of the physicians are hired at will. Mr. Richardson had raised I believe, some sort of wrongful termination claim of some sort. I'm not familiar with all of the pleadings in the case because it wasn't me. But there was a demand in the multiple millions of dollars. I want to say it was in the $4 million range. It had, as it was reported to me in the record, when I was reviewing the record, was that there were some negative indications of liability given by the trial judge, that he was going to potentially impose liability in this case on GMH because the case had drug out for so many years. Mm-hmm. And so I believe the settlement that was reached was pennies on the dollar to the original demand, is what was communicated by Mr. McDonald during the board meeting. And so without speaking on the merits, it wasn't my case. That's really the facts of it, that it was settled at a significant thing after there were some negative indications of liability by the trial judge.
All right. When you mentioned that Attorney Luther had been given a special assistant AG designation, that covers procurement as well?
Special SAG designation.
Yeah. So they are able to be the one representing the Attorney General's office to sign off on the procurements for GMH as well. Do you currently have that?
No, we don't.
All right.
And that was one of the things that Mr. Moylan had done initially. There's in talking to some of the other agencies as well, he had canceled the Special Assistant Attorney General designations for all of the agencies and has moved a lot to outsourcing contracts as well. I don't necessarily, the wisdom of that is his own, but at the same time, it does create some further procurement hurdles for all of the agencies.
All right. So in this designation as Special Assistant AG, was he involved in I know not in the very beginning perhaps, but throughout the various parts of that health contract?
No, ma'am. He was not at all. We had a legal counsel at that time that we contracted. Unfortunately, the contract ended, so then we were relying with the AG's office.
All right. Okay. Any further questions for GMH? If not, then I want to thank you for your testimony today, and I'm going to allow, Senator Perez, sorry, hold on. Senator Perez, you're right.
Yeah, just regarding the audit. So initially, the contractor was the vendor that was given the contract. Are they the same ones that provided the no-cost assessment?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So I'm just looking over the audit. I just want a confirmation. Was the company that received the contract for the IT system, was that the same company that provided the no-cost assessment?
IT system? The IT system is a different vendor?
Sorry, the vendor in question in the audit.
MedHealth. That's MedHealth with regards to our RCM.
Okay, were they the same ones that provided the no-cost assessment?
They were the same ones that presented the PowerPoint presentation where they can help us, but they needed to do that assessment at no cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you to the GMH staff who are here.
Thank you too.
All right, we still have signed up Dr. Wen and Dr. Denise Taitano. If you would like to present testimony, you're welcome.
Buenas, half a day, Madam Chair, Senators. So, my boss said, just speak. And so I guess...
Name first, just to be sure.
Sorry. I'm sorry?
Name
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Yeah.
Denise Tyson-Ritter, family medicine physician at AMC.
Thank you.
Again, I'm just speaking from, similar to last time, about more of a personal experience that I recently had at Guam Memorial Hospital. So, and this ties into, I guess, now our billing and coding and reimbursement. So I had a family member recently admitted to GMH and uninsured. So again, we see this often. And so, you know, upon admission, I said, okay, I know that there's possibly resources that are going to be presented to him, right? The VA case managers, social workers, somebody to say, okay, here are some of the things that you can do or that we can provide for you to help with potential medical coverage or, you know, medical resources. By day 2 of admission, he said, no, nobody's come to talk to me about anything. And so I asked registrars, I said, please, you know, have somebody come and speak to him about what his options are. He is uninsured. Again, let me retract, he's retired Gov Guam, but missed the open enrollment and unfortunately needed to be hospitalized. Either way, by day 3, he said, oh, by the way, somebody came in and gave me a lot of paperwork and I get to fill it out and hopefully, you know, we'll go from there. I come in and in his room is this packet, this giant like 14-page packet for Medicaid. He goes, I was told that I need to fill out the application, get all the documents, and I have to turn it into the Medicaid office. I said, you're sitting here admitted into the hospital. How are you expected to do this? And he said, I don't know. I said, it's okay. You know, we'll help you. We'll take care of it. So, you know, I'm asking his nurses and anybody, I said, you know, had anybody come to see him, to speak to him about, because I'm unaware of what resources are available to him. I don't work the hospital. I'm a community physician. And so I said, no, we're going to help you. We're going to put a consult in so that our social worker, case manager, or an eligibility specialist, these are the 3 terms that kept rotating, will come and see him. I said, great. But in that meantime, I'm going to help him. So imagine this, right? We see so many uninsured patients or underinsured, uninsured, self-pay come into the hospital. This is our opportunity to identify these very vulnerable patient population and say, okay, how can we get them the coverage that they need while in hospital, right? Because there's a high probability that these patients will qualify for Medicaid, Medicare, but who's going to assist them? I have the packet in my bag, and I'm still looking through it, like, you know, trying to understand this jargon, trying to understand where we even start with this application, and then where we go from there. And I was told by various people that somebody will come and help him and help assist. So already a week in, and I have no idea what's going on. I said, it's okay, we will take care of it. And he's almost upon discharge. So again, the point being is that we are able to identify this patient population. And in terms of community health, I would like us to be able to mitigate that and say, okay, we need to get them coverage while in hospital, because upon discharge, without coverage, without resources, they will not continue to see the specialists that they possibly need to see, or get the medications and equipment that they need, or even see their primary care provider. And what happens is they possibly are going to be at high risk of bounce back and readmission to the same hospital as the same uninsured patient. So when we're talking about resources and hiring, really considering, you know, putting that effort into hiring our case managers and our social workers and coders, because in primary care, we want to ensure that, you know, when our patients are hospitalized and discharged, we want to see them stable and improving by the time we see them, which is soon after hospitalization. There's a high risk of bounce back and readmission for these patients that are sitting there vulnerable, you know, uninsured in the hospital. I don't know how many of them will fall through the cracks without the same social and family support that, you know, my family member has. Like, I'm aggressive that I will take care of that paperwork, but what about for those patients who don't have the same support, who look at this application and say, this is so overwhelming, I don't understand it, I'm going to put this aside and not qualify for any, you know, coverage or resources, and then end up once again readmitted for various other reasons or the same exacerbated reason. And so that was just another experience. So note to self, just advocate for the people you love. or advocate for your family member while in hospital. The nursing team was so amazing, but again, they didn't know the protocol. They had no idea. They said, we know that these people would come, but I don't know what services are provided. I don't know what resources are out there. And again, this is our opportunity to say, okay, they will possibly qualify for Medicaid, Medicare, and in terms of hospital billing, that's reimbursement for your services. In terms of the community care provider, that means my patients will hopefully be in great stable position when they finally come to see us, and we can continue to manage that.
Thank you, Dr. Taitsino. Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Huang Nguyen, and I'm a family practice physician and also a principal partner of American Medical Center. So we basically, when the needs come and talk to me regarding how you're going to get the patient that uninsured to go to the hospital and get care. So my answer to her is that, every hospital, there's a social worker and case management that will tackle you the first time. If you're uninsured, that they will actually assist you from day one, to make sure that you apply for MIP Medicaid to make sure that the hospital get reimbursed. That's the biggest thing because, GMHA said that they have half of their patients uninsured. And I said, well, I used to own part of the dialysis center. And as you know, 80% plus of dialysis patients are considered uninsured. The only insurance that covers dialysis is if you work for the federal or the government. No private company, third-party insurance will pay for dialysis. So the first time the dialysis patient get to the center, the social worker on top of it try to get them to be either Medicare, Medicaid, or MIP certified. Because if you work for AMC or you work for any private company here and you're on dialysis, you're done. Your insurance won't pay for it. So, but you can see the dialysis center is, I think we have 14 now. And physicians make tons of money. So the excuse of the uninsured patient and we go broke because we not do what we're supposed to be. So GMH, just like Dr. Tyson say, need to be on top of it. I don't know where we dropped the ball. So that's part of billing. I just want to go back and Senator Frank Blasson asked about the billing. The only thing I'm going to talk about is just the billing and EMR, because that's all I know. And GMH is our hospital, my hospital, your hospital, and the people of Guam Hospital. I love GMH, but it got to change. I can speak about billing because we own our own medical clinic and we do our billing. It's an outpatient clinic, we have 3 centers, but Senator Blas, we have more than 12 to 15 certified coder. Coding and billing from the healthcare is totally different. You cannot fall behind. You can never catch up. You can see 1,000, 1 million patients you want, but you don't code correctly the first time, the insurance won't pay. And when they kick back to you, that's where the big headache, because you have to go back and relook at the medical record, you recode again, and you keep submitting until all the dot T off on that. That's Medicare. I'll listen to them about Medicare billing, and the speaker asked them, they bill like way over the Medicare rate, and I get reimbursed like a quarter of them. I say, how the heck do you do that? Every insurance, there's a rate to it. You bill within that rate. You cannot bill, if they pay you $100, you can bill $1,000. Make no sense. And Medicare pay really, really fast. And within 2.5 weeks, if you code them electronically correctly, you get paid. So you cannot overbill them. Oh my goodness, how the heck do you do that? You know, with the hospital, just like any data center, you can submit at the end of the year the cost expense, and they will readjust your rate for the next year, the year after that. And that's what the responsibility, you know, the speaker was saying, yeah, many years ago, they're supposed to do that stuff to readjust the rate. I don't think nothing happened. And you know, you can't bill them and yet pay a quarter. It doesn't make sense how you do the Medicare things. And again, as you go back to the coder, you cannot have the whole hospital have 8 or 9 certified coder. You guys gonna give them, it's a bottom pits of money that you're gonna keep giving because they never gonna catch up with their billing. Never, you know. So you have to revise the billing. We send our employee to be certified. You have to invest the money in them. You cannot practice without a certified coder. You know, if you want to fix it, they need for about 30 coder, not 8 or 9. If you don't fix that, forget it. Nothing going to work for GMH. Okay? So you, again, if you do correctly, you won't get denied. Yes, you have a year to do Medicare. You have 90 days to do the private. But you fall behind, that's when our chief of staff twice at GMH. It's very sad at the end of the year that you just had 20 cents per dollar settlement for insurance because you can't bill. Who's going to survive? You cannot. You know, there's accountability. GMH need to be accountable for it. Not, then you never have enough money to do that. So when you want to fix the coding, get the certified coder. Forget about the rest of the billing department. You had to have certified coder to do the first time. And it boiled down to EMR, the electronic medical record. You know, I don't know what they tried to tell you, but we have electronic medical records in day one in 2005. We stay with one because we buy the right one. GRMC, they opened for 9 years. They have one EMR. They stay with EMR. Now, EMR is something different. As an electronic medical record, you have two choices. You can buy a module, different company, to interface with the EMR to do the billing. Or you can buy the same EMR that some company have a module for the billing and attached to it. You don't never buy an EMR and do billing manually. That's a disaster. It's so much work. I don't know they haven't, I hear about them is do manual billing and an EMR. It makes absolutely no sense. You're gonna catch up, you're never gonna catch up. That's the healthcare. So, you know, I think since I was off the chief of staff for many years now, I think this is like the second or third EMR they go through. I don't know what they're buying, but you had to buy the EMR the first time. Now, you can forget about the past. You know, we always talk on the government on the same EMR across Guam, right? Different hospital, different clinic. Public health, they should be all the same EMR. It's easy for them to interface each other and access the record. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? GRMC across the street have the EMR for 9 years. They have the same EMR, same look. It's well known, it's tested, it's worked. They have a module to do the billing. Why are we not talking to them and use the same EMR? That's what we always talk about. It costs a lot. EMR is not 1 million or 3 million. Okay, I'm telling you, our EMR costs about 1 to 3 million That's for clinic. Hospital, going to be 5 to 10. You're going to invest that money in there. It costs a lot. But just think about it. It functions with the billing module that you can do the billing a lot easier. So I'm not quite sure why we're not talking to other hospital that's working. We have to go out and do our own. It doesn't make any sense. You know, get the same module, same EMR, get your staff trained, the physician trained, the nursing staff trained. That's who you want, and get your billing code trained. The billing people, the coder to be trained on it. Yes, it's expensive, but you're gonna pay for something once, and you don't keep repeating it. And you better be ready, because it's not gonna cost 1 to 3 millions. They're gonna cost a lot more. So, and I know there's no one else better to find out. Ask GMC how much it costs, and they will tell you, and go from there. But I want GMH to succeed. You know, I don't want to keep reading that they keep spending all this money on EMR. And I tell you, when I was at GMH, I hate the EMR that they pick. They never ask the physician, the nursing staff, their opinion on the type of EMR that they buy. I don't know who go out and buy them. If I buy something new, I ask the user, the end user. But I'm not going to just go out there and buy one that people hate to use. So again, EMR have to be with the billing module. You cannot buy the EMR and do the billing manually. So you start from the EMR, you make sure they have billing module, you make sure that you have the adequate amount of coder, and you will improve from there. But to collect 40% of what you bill is horrible. It's not unacceptable. You know, there's company out there that you can really hire a certified company, but you have to go out and really look for one, and they usually collect 90% plus of what they bill. I don't mind telling you, we collect about 95% plus what we bill. You cannot survive with 40%. I mean, it's pitiful. It's unacceptable, and unacceptable to write off anything, even if your system are down. Our system are down. You know, that's electronic, that computer. Sometimes the power glitch, bring your system down, but we're going to go back, we're going to capture every one of them. You cannot say we're going to write that month off because our system is down. I mean, that's when there's no accountability on this thing. All we do is, if we're short, we go to you and ask for more money. So really, I mean, it's the negative or positive I say about GMH is for better to get, GMH should get better. Because that's my hospital. That's your hospital. That's the people of Guam Hospital. It's not because we don't like GMH. My children are born, both of them at GMH. I love GMH. But again, they need to change. And they need to, and you need to hear the truth about EMR and the billing, because you cannot survive without knowing exactly what you do. All these people talk today, I'm scratching my head and say, what the heck are they talking about? You know, so please talk to the other hospital and get the same EMR, get the coder. 8 is not enough. You need at least 25 to 30 certified coders. And you can send people to get trained. That's what we do to our staff. We send them to get trained. Because without the coder, you can't bill, you cannot collect. So billing 25 million and collect is totally different things. So, you know, I just look at the bottom line of what you can collect. Okay, and just like Dr. Taino say, you have 50% of your your patient as an indigent patient, why that's a perfect way to capture the Medicaid application right there. And again, I talked to some government official before. You got to simplify the Medicaid. Most people just want their Medicaid, their insurance, but it's a package of 14-page that even my family look and say, where do we start? It's so complicated, it's crazy. So you gotta simplify that somehow, and you gotta help them. Again, thank you so much for giving us some time to talk to you. But again, it's a negative, positive. What we want to do is love GMH and make them better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wen, and thank you both for waiting to testify today. I appreciate that. Senators, questions? Senator Blas.
Dr. Taito, Dr. Nguyen, thank you very much for coming. You know, I think that, you know, if there's anything that we can appreciate, that there's value in this conversation, is that it forces the community, it forces ideas to come, not just from the public sector, but from the private sector too as well. You know, this has been a long-standing issue, and not to any fault of the GMH staff that's here. I can see them trying to be able to find processes and ways to improve. Dr. Taito, I like you're right. You know, if you get to the patient early and you start to identify where those issues are at early, it's preventive medicine, if you will. It's just in the financial form. You know, to be able to provide the social worker the ability to be able to identify whether or not this individual, whether underinsured or uninsured, to be able to get them some type of assistance and at least start to identify them. You know, Dr. Nguyen, I have to agree with you as well that based on the testimony and the conversation with Ms. Hitchinova, okay? One of the major problems that we have with our is that it's not the billing, it's the codings. It starts at the very beginning, okay? And it's very concerning then when we have over $300 million in AR, and then you start to think about billings and the bills that you're not able to address, or you cannot address because of the timeline, the expiration of timelines. If we can somehow close that gap, I don't think this will ever be a conversation, this thing. You know, as an obligation, this body and this community has an obligation to ensure that your doors don't close. But I think that's also the problem in this, is that we can't close it. And we can't close it, we're going to have to continue to throw money into the hole. And it's got to stop, okay? It's got to stop, and the way to be able to stop this is we start to identify where those gaps are and where those shortfalls are at with your billing to be able to get you to become more solvent. So I appreciate this conversation, and thank you all for the contribution. I learned a lot, okay, in this thing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Blas. Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do appreciate the comments that you provided. In fact, you know, I think we can even go further in, you know, enrolling potential patients into Medicaid, Medicare. I understand, you know, with this FSM population, a lot of them are eligible for access to these medical care, basically, if they enroll in Medicaid. I think the problem I'm seeing is that the rules change. And so I think we really need to work with other agencies, Department of Public Health, for instance, to ensure that, you know, the segment of the population is already enrolled. And so should the time come that they are hospitalized, they, you know, we don't have to go looking for those documents, which I hear is one of the biggest hurdles. And then also there's been a change in Social Security procedures, which makes obtaining these documents even more difficult. So, it may involve reaching out to the federal government to see how they can facilitate enrollment into Medicaid. I think, and this would help them get access to medical care, in addition to helping with the, collections and billing. I guess in response to your suggestion, Dr. Nguyen, I have a question for GMH. Have you actually gone to GRMC and observed their processes and obtain ideas, and do you think this is a feasible thing to, so again, my concern was this patchwork system that's in place at GMH, and I've been hearing constant recommendations for the need to have a more integrated system. And I think this is really a good investment, something that I would support as we reach the budget cycle. So do you think this is feasible? What have you done as far as looking at GRMC and their processes and how you can implement some of those?
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for recommending that. However, with the procurement process, we don't want to, but I hear from the clinicians, the doctors, and the nurses who work up there that the system that they have, the EHR, is a very good system, but we have to go through the RFP process, and hoping that, the vendor that GRMC uses provides a proposal when we do the RFP, but, that's what we have.
I'm not in any way advising you to go with the exact vendor, but just at least look at what's the model practices there. And yeah, so
we are aware of it.
And abiding by the procurement law for sure. I mean,
right.
I'm not, suggesting anything otherwise. Mm-hmm. But do you think this is feasible? I mean, have you studied their system? Have you gotten some good takeaways from their system?
The nurses who have used it, the clinicians, the doctors who have gone out there and used it, they said, yes, it is very efficient and very effective. So, with that information, I don't go there, I don't use it, but the feedback I get, it's been very good, very positive.
Any EHR system, though, is going to be very complex and cumbersome in some ways. That's just the nature of having a lot of moving parts in technology. I'm not sure that the GRMC experience has been a straight line benefit either, but as far as looking at other options and stuff, we had talked earlier about even discussions with Saipan and things like that, and even Jeremiah and I have met with some people from Saipan to explore ways that they're more efficient and do things as well. So we are searching other models, but I can guarantee you that Saipan, GRMC, any entity with an EHR system is having struggles and sometimes will even be changing them. I don't think that the grass is always greener in an EHR situation, but we are exploring options. We just are constrained by the procurement code in what we can and cannot go out and discuss with people.
So there's also the other option of a contract manager, right? So they are the ones that are going to then seek the procurement or do the procurement on behalf of GMH. This is something that, if we don't have the expertise, this is something possibly to look at as well. But I appreciate everybody's recommendations. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Doc, for your testimony. I think the point is, talk to your neighbor. Right, that's it. I mean, you're not asking you to take their trade secrets or jeopardize any procurement, but just talk to each other. And I thank you for your testimony. It was great to hear outside perspective of what we heard what's going on at the Guam Memorial Hospital today. So thank you for that, docs, and thank you again, Ms. Lillian. I'm glad we got through this hearing without a resignation. And thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing further.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Lillian, if you don't mind. It's my understanding, I want to thank you, Dr. Taitano, for your recommendation, but it's my understanding, we have talked about this before. This is supposed to be a standard practice already in GMH, where you have social workers or caseworkers that help people to apply for Medicaid. Can you please give us an update?
Absolutely, yes. And we do have the caseworkers, we have the social workers, and we have eligibility specialists, and we do have a discharge planning process. Unfortunately, maybe this is the one individual, one patient that probably was just not captured, or the physician did not order a discharge planning. And that's what we have in place right now, so we'll follow it through.
All right.
And unfortunately, the individual already went home, right?
Yeah.
Or still in the hospital?
So, yeah, I'm going to ask that you review this process. So it's supposed to be
Yes.
part of our collective efforts to improve billing. And, but obviously, you need to review it if you don't
Absolutely.
mind.
I will follow it through.
And also, I'd like a couple things. So, does GMH have any plans to hire more coders or not? And as opposed to hiring above step or additional lawyers, are we going to hire more coders? Plans? No?
We're very limited in space, but this is where probably we will need to do the remote work, find a place for them, or they can do it
But so
at
far,
home.
do you have concrete plans or not really?
Well, we actually are talking about outsourcing the billing and coding
okay.
process, and so that's what we're looking at.
All right. Can you talk to your fiscal team? I would really like to know further details about estimates of EHR costs, because I'm getting text messages saying, yeah, 50 million, not even 5 to 10, but more than that. I know that we had appropriated 10 million to GMH ever since 2018 for the EHR system upgrades, but that never got to you. But I'm just saying, this has been going on for so long, the prices are going up, but I would not be surprised if you completely underestimated the cost, and I'm worried that we're going to fumble around for another years. That's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 5 years so far since 2018 when you first brought this up to me. And I really want to know if there's a long-term, or if there's a plan in procuring an EHR, what your goals are. Is it just to get a system that can operate for your hospital? Is it to integrate with public health as suggested? Is it to integrate? We had these discussions back in 2018 about integrating our entire community with the Guam Memorial Hospital's, at least the records part of it, right? And so for more efficiencies in provider services. But so I'd like to know if you can discuss that with your fiscal team or the fiscal executive order team. I think that's very important, and it's going to be the key that either helps us going forward or lands us in the same situation in 5 years again. And I'd like a new list of your billables with that new column that says from the 3 M's, the actual realistic amounts that you are billing. In other words, not your rates, but their rates, right? All right, thank you. And so again, thank you to all of you who stayed here to testify today, who've provided their testimony, and for all your ongoing work at the hospital. This hearing is concluded. It is now 5:40 p.m.
Thank
you very much.